Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Community Spotlight. We are here with a special version today because today is the 10th anniversary of the first NieR game. It's one of those games that a lot of people forget about because Automata has been so popular. So we've got Skate for a Living here, who's going to be running any %A for us of this game today. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we jump into that, just would like to do a few quick announcements. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for Random Number Generation. It's a show on Tuesdays starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's about randomizers, randomizer community, and they usually just spotlight different randomizers, bring on devs, they talk about how they work, do some runs, races, etc. It's a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in for that. And of course, if you wanted to check up on the latest stuff for SGDQ and the dates for that, gamesdonequick.com/notice has all of the information. And of course, we'll update people on Twitter as necessary. But Skate for a Living, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
So we've got two other people here helping us out. Why don't you introduce them for us real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. My first commentator is one of the older people in this community who's done runs in the past and still does a lot of leaderboard and community maintenance to the day. They are Mash. Good to have you here.
Yeah. It's a pleasure. It's nice
Thank
to
you.
see you all here as well.
And my other commentator, former world record holder for the sequel to this game, NieR Automata, an all-around good person, we have Ame.
Hello.
All right.
So why don't you give us the quick rundown on this game? Because like I said, it's a game a lot of people forget exists. A lot of Automata was just so popular that it doesn't enter people's thoughts too often. Like, how is this game different from its sequel?
Sure. So it's kind of a weird situation where on paper, if you were to just write down what each of these games offer, they're the same game. But when you look at them side by side, they don't play exactly the same. They don't look exactly the same or anything like that. But at the end of the day, it's an action RPG where you follow a story and go around an open world. And this is just kind of the origin of what Automata became 7 years later. And if you've only played Automata and haven't played this game, I think it would really make you appreciate where Automata came from, because it definitely did come from this game, even though a lot of things aesthetically aren't the same.
Sounds good. Is there anything you think that we should know before we get the run started?
Really, the only things to be looking out for this run today is that movement is really where a lot of the optimizations come in the run. And for someone who's never played this game before, it may be kind of hard to catch on these little nuanced movements I'm doing throughout really the entire run. So when you're watching this run today, I would say to pay special attention to the movement, and we'll be talking about it during the run. But for someone who's never run this game before or even seen it, that's probably going to be the hardest thing to catch up on. But it makes a difference of tens or maybe even an hour of time. So it's pretty important.
All right. Sounds good. If you are ready to get started, so am I.
Sure. And I guess, Ryoku, this is actually something I didn't talk to you about beforehand, but in this game, you get to make your own character name. So I'll give someone 5 seconds in chat to come up with a good character name for our hero today.
I mean, I'm going to throw in my own suggestion. But
I'd love to hear it.
There's some strong contenders there.
There are definitely some strong contenders in here. And I only can pick one. It's so sad. 3 more seconds. And I definitely see a winner.
I see a winner too.
It happens to come from one of our commentators, so I'm not biased here, but they did pick a pretty good answer. And we'll explain this a little more later, but we refer to the main character of this game sometimes as Papa NieR, so I think Papa's a good name. All right, Railcoon, are you ready with your timer?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Then we will begin in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so right out of the gate, we're going to be in this kind of desolate-looking area. In the one of the versions of this game, this is actually Tokyo, but in this version, it's just a unidentified place. And this is what we call the prologue of the game. It's really getting you introduced to the core concepts of the game. Just, attacking. You can see here it asks us to roll, and then a little bit after this combat here, we'll be doing some magic.
So one quick thing to note really early on. Quite often in the first half of the game, Skate will be trying to hit as many enemies as possible with each swing of his sword. You can hit, up to 3, 4, maybe even 5 enemies at once.
Yeah.
So very small optimizations right out the gate.
Yeah, and now we have access to magic, which is your most used utility in this game as far as dealing with combat situations, because unlike most games, the protagonist is usually pretty strong, but we're not very strong. You'll learn that throughout the run. So, Skate is now performing what we call Dark Blast, and he's managing the charge shots, which are going to stray around and home in on enemies. And it's going to allow him to deal significant amounts of damage and quickly dispatch of all these foes as he cycles through different magic spells that we have access to.
Yeah, every spell in the game has a certain characteristic that you can get out of it when you charge it. So Dark Blast there just happens to be that if you hold it for 3 seconds or so, you get those little extra shots. So now we have Dark Execution, which sends these little spears up from the ground. And other than Dark Blast and the prologue, when you're given a magic, you're locked into it until you get another magic. So I could do Dark Blast right now, but for these guys, Dark Execution is definitely the way to go. And also another interesting note is that in the prologue here is every magic that we're actually going to use in the run. So there's, 4 or 5 other magics other than the ones that you're about to see right now, but it's pure coincidence that we just don't use them in the run. When you have this many magics to use, you really just gotta narrow it down to the one that's gonna do the most DPS.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
It winds up being a little bit of a preview of the run.
Yeah.
In a way. It's foreshadowing to some later stuff, but yeah. So the one thing to note too that we'll see him do a little bit later is when he has access to be able to change his spells, he's only gonna have 3 equipped spells throughout the run.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we're about to do probably one of the most oblivious skips in the run.
Oh yeah. This is a really good one.
So with the prologue, it usually ends up in like a little tutorial style boss fight. But it just so happens that if you leave one guy alive and then kill him from the inside of the building, the game doesn't spawn the boss at all. We have no idea why.
And this is a recent thing that Skate and Vernie had found out about, right?
Yeah, I think Vernie was the one who started using it. But for what this game offers in terms of like glitches and tech, that's probably the biggest oversight in the entire run, because otherwise this game does a really, really good job of making sure you don't do things early and go out of bounds and stuff like that. So it's just weird in the prologue that that's the one spot that they kind of messed up on. Can't even get out of the house there.
That's really funny. I like that.
Yeah.
So while we have some time, I'd like to bring up one of the key parts of the run that I guess people wouldn't notice at first, but some of the keen-eyed of you might have spotted. There's a bunch of different types of rolls in the game. There's forward rolls, which is what you would usually use casually. There's backwards rolls that kind of look like a somersault, I believe. It's been a little while. And there's also side rolls, which are, for our speedrun, the fastest way of moving around in the first half of the game. A lot of the time, he will be setting up very fast side rolls by, manipulating the camera or the way that NieR faces. Or I should be really calling him Papa at this point. So that you can very, very quickly jump into a side roll and get the maximum speed out of the gate.
Yeah, there's it's really hard to notice unless you're comparing them side by side. When you're doing the different rolls, there's 3 rolls like Ame mentioned, and when you're performing the angles, you want to get about a 45 degree usually when you're setting up for these rolls there. If he gets a backwards roll, it's going to be like a backflip almost. So, but you get the distance you need.
So not even 5 minutes in, we're already in one of the very noticeable luck sections of the game. So to introduce drops and quests and stuff, one of the main, we'll call them characters of the game, Popola, asks us to go find 3 muttons from these sheep here. And the sheep have an 80% chance of dropping mutton and 20% chance of dropping wool. So if you do the math, it's a 51% chance that you'll get 3 mutton and no wool. But as you can see there, we got 3 mutton and no wool. So good luck to start out with.
He started explaining that, and I was very worried it was going to be a World of Warcraft situation where they just wouldn't have mutton very frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want the wool.
Yeah, that's the only time I purposely, or no, that's a lie. That's the 1 of 2 times I purposely harm an animal in the speedrun. Otherwise, we're like, look at the piggies. We don't hurt the piggies. So to introduce shops, we're going to go here and buy some medicinal herbs for Popola.
Yep.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay. So yeah, I guess when they were mentioning the side rolls, a good way to look out for when I'm trying to do a side roll, Mash had mentioned the 45-degree angle. And like fighting games, like it's kind of like a quarter circle. You'll kind of see me do a quarter circle movement when I'm about to start a side roll, like right there.
Looks a little bit like a circle jump and Quake kind of thing, just from
Yeah.
the shoulder.
The weird thing about that roll is when you're just getting the fast rolls, it looks identical to the standard forward roll. The only difference is the animation just comes out slightly faster.
Yeah, and there's no recovery either.
Yeah. Also, with the side rolls, as long as you chain your dashes with no time in between them. Dashes? Rolls, sorry. Wrong game. And you don't really change the direction too much, you can maintain that speed while changing direction.
Yeah, you just have to maintain within that 45-degree angle of which you started it in, but as long as you're moving the camera and stuff, you can just infinitely hold a side roll like that.
Yeah, you can also, I noticed you can look at the mini-map, but it makes it very obvious that you're side rolling, even though it looks like a forward roll.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up. Just within the mini-map, you can tell when I'm doing a side roll. And there'll be a point later in the run where I'll have some time to actually, like, literally show you all the difference between a regular roll and a side roll, and between all that, hopefully, it'll make a little more sense. Yeah, so I just tried to do a side roll out of NieR's house there. It's probably one of the hardest setups in the run to get a side roll, and you have to do it like 9 times or something. But in theory, or not even in theory, in practice, you can take a side roll all the way from NieR's house to the library up here. It's really hard to do, but it's something I go for sure.
So this is the type of thing you were talking about when you said that the movement optimization is just a big part of this run, is just trying to chain these side rolls as much as possible?
Absolutely. At the top level, at least between the 2 or 3 of us that are at the top level, it's become a lot more of a luck fest when you're going for a top time. But I was just short of the previous world record by 40 seconds or so the other day and had some of the worst luck I've ever seen. So even though it can seem a lot of the time like luck plays a big part, it really is about the execution at the end of the day. Alright, so now Popola here has told us that they're trying to build a bridge, but some of these nasty enemies we're facing, the Shades, have started popping up around the village and the outer areas and won't let us complete this bridge. So in order to progress, we're going to go give them the business.
Yeah, so one important thing he's going to do during this section is try to chain together as many attacks as possible and build a combo gauge which speeds up his combat.
In what way does it speed it up? Like more damage or just your attacks?
It literally speeds up the animation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like it's one of the few things they don't really explain in the game, but like in some of the fights later on when I'm going to be getting like 50 and 60 hit combos, you'll absolutely be able to tell the difference. Even right now where I'm at 30 hits, I'm attacking so much faster than I was.
Yeah, you have a brief delay between dropping an attack before it starts to reset. So when it starts beginning to flash, that's your moment to roll in, get another attack off, and keep it going.
Yeah, once that number's off the screen, your combo's done. And that can really hurt you in some of the parts of the run in terms of speed.
I've got to be honest, I actually never knew that. So
Yeah.
I'm learning things today too.
To be fair, you still haven't played a whole lot of this game in terms of speedrunning yet, but you've been getting there, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Escape's
we're
gonna...
just- Oh, if you would like to continue.
So Escape's gonna turn in this quest, and Popla's gonna explain some more stuff for him to end up doing, and he'll be going to another important section of the run that we'll be seeing quite often.
Yeah. She wants us to go in and check on our daughter, but let me just say she ain't gonna be there. So after talking, or trying to look at Yona here, I'll see if I can maybe get a quick roll from the house to the library. She's not there. Alright, here we go.
So while we have a little bit of time free, I'd like to point out at the very start of the run after the prologue, one of the first things Skate did was pick up one of the items in the house. So those are those little glowing spots that you'll find on the floor, inside the house on bookshelves and stuff. A lot of those can be magic buffs, items that you could need playing casually. I believe the one in the house was a medicinal herb.
Yes.
You can also get a bunch of money. So they're just little things that you may not really think about, but they can add a lot to the time saves throughout the run.
Yeah.
And just a preface for what's going to be happening later in the run. Money matters at all times, so any extra money that we can get that isn't unreasonable, we absolutely are going for it.
I'm still amazed that the amount of times I've seen you do runs of this game, that you never once grabbed the book in the runs that I've seen.
The book?
Like the book for the Mother's Diary, but I don't think you have the DLC installed. Right?
Oh no DLC
Exactly.
here.
So that's a good thing for myself or anybody else that has the DLC. It's occasionally happened where we just open up the book and it just kills time.
Yeah, and in fact, as far as I know, DLC actually increases the length of load times in this game, so it's generally a good idea not to have it installed when you're running.
It does indeed.
Alright, so we got wind that Yona may be here in this abandoned ancient temple, so that's where we're on our way to right now. And you'll notice here, once I come out of this, I'm going to be doing a side roll from the bottom here, from a double jump. So you notice that as soon as I got on the terrain here, I started instantly side rolling. And then up here, I'm going to try to manipulate my camera angles so that as soon as I get out of this cutscene, I'll be in a good position to do a side roll. So I need a mash roll, and I got it. Then I'll be doing a little bit of tech here just to fall down the ravine pretty quickly. So it's just a double jump to plunge. If I can ever fall down. There we go. And then you can notice immediately out of that plunge, I'm also side rolling. So a lot of these setups where you're just trying to make sure that you're side rolling as soon as possible, that's really where the optimizations have come in the past, say, 6 to 8 months for the run, and it's added up quite a bit.
Yeah. Skate's going to be making his way up this temple, which is actually called the Lost Shrine in the game. He's going to be doing various things in this climb to the top.
One of them being our first, other than the boss skip, it's so trivial at this point that I don't even think about it being a skip. But yeah, the first real skip, I would say, in the run will happen here. So before we can progress, we need to find this bronze key. I found it. It's in the same spot every time.
I remember playing this game casually way back in 2010 when you're told to find a key and I hit every single box.
I did the same.
Every single box. And then I finally found it. I'm like, oh boy. Yeah,
Alright.
quick combat sections here as he moves through these rooms that will
So-
later be something else.
Yes. I'm on my way to the first real skip. This is probably the hardest skip to execute, generally in the entire run, in my opinion. Let's see if I get it. Wow. Very nice.
Very clean.
So yeah, the way that skip works is we do a double jump into a roll, and then right at the very end, we can use the momentum of our sword swing to get us just past that little bit of a gap that we couldn't get. And that saves, I'd say, at least a minute.
Yeah. It's at least a minute if you can do the setup pretty cleanly and fast. There's an additional part to that skip that we used to do. I don't think Skate does it anymore, but we used to launch ourselves up from the very bottom from shades, but it's very, very RNG dependent.
Yeah, you can't do that at this point in the run yet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Alright, got finisher off there. This is really the only part of the run where you'll be seeing finishers. Sometimes when you knock down the enemy, you can use like this super attack to really drain its HP down. But based on the budding settings I'm going to be using later, it's really the only appropriate time in the run to use it.
So, back on the topic of money. Throughout the game, all the enemies in the game pretty much have small chances to drop items. Now, some of them are more consistent than others, but occasionally you might see there's like an orange drop on the floor. Those are ones that we really need to look out for in the run. They can be worth crazy amounts of money, and just getting a couple of them here can really, really help out.
Yeah, as he gets through the later parts of the game, they become a little bit... I want to say it's more frequent, but then that would be the wrong terms to use. But yeah, you definitely want to keep an eye out for those, because they do help out a lot.
Alright, so I guess now would be a good time to explain this. This is probably the newest significant improvement to the run here. So first off, I'm going to skip this whole section over here where you're supposed to push a box and stuff, and I'm just going to jump up this route if I can. Just like that. So similar to before, we used the sword swing to give our momentum up. So this part of the shrine I'm in right now, you're not even supposed to be at this point in the game. So there's these boxes over here that have some stat boosting items, or at least temporary stat boosting items that you're not supposed to be able to get at this point. So as you can imagine, they help us out. And the stat boosting items have a 40% chance each, and then there's a recovery potion that has a 5%. And as you can see, I got the magic drop. So we'll be using that on not this boss, but the next boss. And let me tell you, having a magic boss on that, or a magic drop on that boss is a treat. Watching its HP just drain is really funny to watch.
Does she always say Papa, or is that because your name is Papa?
He may have not said Papa, it may have just been on the screen.
On the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, the character's name is always going to be whatever the player selects.
Yep.
But his actual name in the actual story is NieR.
So if you notice here, I'm not trying to kill these shades, but I'm doing hits to them. You might be wondering, why am I not trying to kill them? The way this boss fight works is, after this dialogue here, you have to kill a certain amount of shades, and then more shades spawn. So the idea here is to try to kill as little as possible, but have to get as many of them as possible to low health, so that we can just do one hit here. And hopefully kill as little shades as possible.
Yeah, this is actually one of the bigger time saves, I would say, because previously in the run, before we really implemented this, we used to kill as many as possible just for experience. But then they'll be all over the place at full health, and I don't know, 15 to 30 seconds maybe at worst.
Yeah. So now we just have to kill all the shades. So this boss and most of the bosses here in the first third of the run showcase a technique in a speed game that not really sure I've ever seen in too many other speed games. So I'm going to be using Dark Blast here, just like I was in the prologue. except instead of just holding down right bumper, I'm actually mashing right bumper right now. And the way Dark Blast works in the game is that when you do it, the very first bullet that comes out is way more powerful than the rest of the bullets that come out before it. So we can abuse this by just making every single bullet come out as the strong bullet, but you have to mash. So I think it's quite rare to find a speed game where you have to mash like a shoulder button like this. It's kind of weird. So I got some bad luck here. Sometimes he just lunges at you like that. All you can do is just get out of the way. So the name of these bosses are Hansel and Gretel, so you fight them together and then you fight them separately. So that was Hansel. Now we'll fight Gretel. Gretel I do a little bit differently. I do a roll and then set up a Dark Lance charge. You can only charge it twice to start, but just to get a little bit of extra damage in while Gretel's throwing those fireballs out. And then otherwise here, since we didn't get a strength drop from the roof, really all you can do here is spam Dark Blast and hope these shades don't get in your way, because when the shades or any enemy hits you, they interrupt you. So the idea is just to get it done.
Yeah, so when you're downing an enemy, you'll go into what it's like the end part of that phase, and a clock will appear. You have to deal enough damage to it, or else it'll reset the boss.
Right, I believe they call the attack gauge.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's an attack gauge, and then what that'll do is it'll trigger an animation. He'll cast out a spell, which will trigger either at the end of the fight or the next phase of the fight if there's additional ones.
Yep.
But now we've rescued our daughter from the shrine. And we bring her back home.
But unfortunately, in the process, we've learned that she has a deadly disease.
Which is aptly named called the Black Scrawl.
Yep.
So again here, we're picking up items in the house. One of them is a strength buff. Doubles melee damage for, I believe, 15 seconds.
30.
And, 30, okay.
It's
And the other
30...
one's a little bit of money.
Yeah, I think it's 30 for drops and 60 for capsules.
That's right.
They give the same amount of an effective buff, it's just the duration.
Yep. So the way that I take those cliffs to get up to the library, like that's when we're really starting getting into optimizations. I think if you do it perfectly, it saves maybe like a second every time you do it from the place that I just did it from. But I learned how to get pretty consistent at it, so I just prefer it now. You don't have to deal with stairs and stuff like that. It's really hard, or pretty much impossible to fast roll on some stairs.
So one of the many things that's different about this game versus Automata is that there's not a lot of ways you can get, like, you can't do the crazy stuff in Automata where you're like going out of bounds and stuff, because in that game it's merely a suggestion if there's walls. In this game you have to abide by them usually. So learning these little optimizations of where you can and can't climb or jump over terrain is very important for this game to speed up travel time, which is a good amount of the time in the early parts of the run.
Alright, so now Popola has introduced quests to us, so we're going to go ahead and start a couple of them. One of them is not really for money or anything, it's actually for transportation, but that second one I did where I talked to the woman there, that would be for some money. And then at the end here I talked to the blacksmith to buy a weapon. And it's really a shame with this weapon because we really only use it for 2 fights, and for how important time and money is in the run, it kind of feels like a shame to go over there to the other side of the town and get it. But I can assure you, even on 2 fights, it's definitely worth it.
Yep.
And I'll equip it now.
One of the things that weapons have that I believe it's unique to this game is that they can actually buff the amount of magic damage you do. So the Lily Leaf Sword, which is the one that Skate just picked up, actually buffs it by 20%, which is huge for the early game.
Hell, you may be able to save the whole damn world. Almost glad.
Yeah, it's a big damage increase. to have a weapon this early.
Does that
Yep.
stack with the magic drop you found earlier?
That is correct. Yeah. With this discovery of being able to get those drops on the roof, I absolutely love doing this boss fight just for how hilariously fast its HP gauge goes down compared to normal.
Yeah, and after this next bit here, he'll have to wrap up a quest that he picked up to access his fastest form of movement until the later parts of the game. And even then, it's still fairly useful. But he'll be using it for an important fight that he could get wrecked on if he doesn't have the improved damage output.
Alright, so in the run, I consider two things what I call god angles. So what you're going to see here is I'm going to be side rolling, and then the camera is going to pan. So I'm not able to see NieR right now, but I'm trying to make it so that I get all the way across the other side of the bridge without getting blocked, and I did it. So very good.
So it's all just setting it up in advance and keeping the rolls going?
Yeah, it's pretty much just knowing where NieR's going when you can't see him, and it's kind of hard to do even with as much experience as you can get.
Yeah, once you get the angle, you just gotta hope that you're holding on to the directional sticks in the correct position as the camera changes direction.
So those shades are being a little mean to me. So yeah, once I talk to this guy here, we're going to be doing another movement skip. So instead of having to walk all the way back the way I came to get back out of the area here, I'm just going to fall all the way down with a precise set of inputs.
Yeah, and this was recently improved by another member of our community, Evil Ash, who found a much more consistent improvement to this, which makes it actually doable on Replicant now.
Yeah, that sword swing I did there is the big game changer with that skip. Before, you had to really have a very precise angle to just barely get over, but with that sword swing, you get to preserve your height so that it's really no problem.
Yeah.
So, dang, I almost got a side roll out of that, but getting a side roll and taking it all the way over here is kind of hard because of what you just saw. So yeah, this will be introducing Kaine. We'll be fighting her twice. At least in this part. So the main thing here is to be looking out for visual cues for when I know she's about to lunge at me. It's just 100% faster to guard the lunge instead of trying to like dodge it or go towards her or something like that.
Yeah, as soon as she starts knocking around, you start losing time.
Yep. And in the second phase here, now she'll be using magic on us. She lunges at you a little bit less, which is nicer. And then after this is the boss fight, we'll be using the magic drop on. And just, I'm telling you, watch the HP gauge. It's so great. Alright, so I'm going to do a roll, magic drop, charge 2 dark lances to the head, and then watch it. Alright, and then I'm going to abuse some recharge mechanics here to do 4 dark lances. And continue that dark blast spam. We're already on the 3rd phase of the fight. He shoots these projectiles out of its head here, so I'm trying to aim my dark lances so they hit him. But I missed. Or rather, I did it too quick even.
So fun fact, they're not projectiles. They're actually enemies, but they still give us magic regen properties if we manage to kill them. And yeah, that fight went really, really fast compared to what a casual attempt would have been.
So much faster.
Yeah, I definitely remember my last run. That fight took maybe a whole minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah. The one thing you don't want to get caught up with when he's cycling through phases is he starts to do a long animation where he's somewhat invincible, but he'll start slamming the ground repeatedly, and that just can really screw you up.
Yeah, even without a dark or without a magic drop, it's possible to not get that phase, but you have to be pretty precise. But when you have the magic drop, it just makes that fight just that much easier, faster, freer. So now that we have 2 different magics here, I'm just going to go ahead and equip them to the controls of my choice, which will be right bumper or left bumper will have Dark Hand for the entirety of the speedrun, and the left trigger will be switched between Dark Lance and Dark Execution. Alright, so one of those quests we picked up before is this guy needs this big baddie boar to be taken care of. I'm going to take care of it. And you'll notice I'll be using that strength drop I picked up from my house. It makes this fight much, much faster, because this boar is very strong right now compared to us. So my combination here I do is a Dark Fist, and then I do a jump attack, and then 4 swings of the sword. I reset the camera, so Dark Fist hits, and then just repeat. And then when we kill him, just like the sheep from before, we have a 30% chance to get a really good drop here, which I didn't get, but it's fine. Excuse me. When you get that drop, the boar liver, it makes it so you don't have to go get a different item, and getting that different item saves 15-16 seconds. So when you get that drop, not only does it save time, but it also gives you more money than that item you would go get, so you end up netting an additional 1.2k in money that you didn't have before.
Yeah,
These are the kinds of things I mean when you're at the top level, where like all of these things matter when you're running at the top level.
Yeah, the important thing to point out in that fight too is normally that boar would start charging and run at you and potentially kill you flat out.
Absolutely.
But because he was locking him up with a combo using dark hand to stun him briefly, he was able to do those other attacks you mentioned, where he's jumping up the air, resetting the camera, and then following up before he could launch another dark hand.
Yep.
So very important reminder that dark hand is going to be a very powerful tool throughout this run.
Yep. Absolutely.
Dark Blast as well. There's a lot of places where you end up using that.
Yeah, Dark Blast is definitely our main form of dealing with bosses and big enemies for the first hour of the run. It's just that powerful. Dang, I've not gotten... Okay, so you can kind of see I rolled into the wall, but I was able to keep this quick roll all the way until that point. So you can even keep this quick roll all the way up the stairs like that, and that's what I'm going for anytime I have to travel from house to library. And if you haven't figured it out already, a lot of this run is going to your house and then to the library to talk to Popola here. Popola is kind of like the matriarch of the town, if you will. And probably a familiar face if you've played NieR Automata, and probably a confusing thing if you haven't played this game.
Yeah.
Yep. Devila, Popola, and Emil are the 3 characters here that actually appear in Automata as well.
Isn't there like a huge time gap in between? How does that work?
Yeah, it's like, what, 10,000 years and change, something like that?
Yeah, there's a pretty large time gap, but don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm worrying about it.
There's also a huge time gap from this game to the predecessor series, which is Drakengard, so don't worry about that either.
Yeah. And if you notice, I talked to the guy that we started the Boar quest with, so now we have access to the Boar, and we're going to make immediate use out of it, heading to the Seafront here. We have to go catch a shaman fish for our daughter. Hopefully that fixes the plague. It won't. Alright, so we're going to ride this Boar to the Seafront, but we're going to get interrupted on the way. We see a guard here getting attacked by some shades, so we're going to try to help him out, and if I can get these enemies to play nice, I can just do 2. Wow. That's the best I've ever had in a run.
That was beautiful.
Nice.
You need them to get in this corner here, so when you dark fist them, they don't go fly somewhere else, because the dark hand will send them flying.
Yeah,
so if
enemies
you do it at a corner like that, it's really, really nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of chances in certain boss fights in areas where you could just knock an enemy off the map and they just insta-die. But in the case of like a big open terrain map, you don't want them to be like going halfway across the field and you have to go chase them.
So, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, one thing that people don't notice about that fight too is it's not optional. You have to do it.
Yes.
Just saying that because of reasons.
So I'm buying 3 tulip bulbs here. This is solely to satisfy the other quest I started, and I guess exemplifies the reason we do this quest is because the items you need for it are so quick to get, and it nets you a profit in money that there's no reason not to. Alright, so now we found the fisherman in the town. He gave us a fishing rod and some lure, so let's go catch a fish.
And doing this actual quest that he's doing now for the fish is not the easiest thing for most people, apparently, because this is where most people go, okay, I'm done, I can't figure this out. So there's a very
Funnily enough-
specific spot that he has
Yeah,
to
we'll
go
be
to.
we'll be looking at the fishing rod here. When I see it completely bowed down, that's when I'm going to be pulling the line by hitting down on the analog stick. And you just have to kind of point the analog stick down, left, or down right, depending on where NieR is leaning. But we got the shaman fish. That's good. There's a 10% chance you can get something there from fishing that you like just waste time and you have to fish again. I find it interesting that usually in games, like when you have to do something for the first time, they make it a guaranteed. But in this game, they didn't do that, so you can not catch what you need to and be even more confused about why you're not progressing the game. In fact, yesterday when I was doing attempts, I got not the fish twice, which is like 1% or less chance, and that's never happened before. But generally, you usually just get the fish and everything's good.
Tommy, you had something?
Yeah, so funnily enough with the fishing, if, like me, you completely forget how it works and you don't know how to fish, the game will actually, take its pity on you. And it will just say, okay, well, it's taking you so long, we'll just give you the fish.
Yeah.
You have to fail it 3 times, but you have to be in the right spot, which the game doesn't do a good job of explaining. So, but yeah, Skate picked up a quest here that is also not optional, it's mandatory, even though the game makes it seem like that. And he's going to deliver the mail to the old lady in the lighthouse.
So yeah, I think this quest right here is kind of a good example of how the game really doesn't want you to like skip stuff. So like you can leave Seafront and not even do this quest at all. But when you get back to your daughter of all people, even though you have the shaman fish in hand, she's like, yeah, maybe you should go help her out. So like even just dumb optional stuff like this, the game does a pretty good job of making you do it. And this is the item I was referring to earlier when I didn't get that drop from the boar. So just going up there, getting that and coming down wastes like 15 seconds. But for how important money is, you absolutely go for it.
Yeah, money will be everything when it comes down to when we go get a very, very coveted weapon in this game.
Yeah.
I appreciate how polite NieR is with how he's walking in the lighthouse. Goes in the library, side rolling over the place. Walks into the lighthouse, calm and casual stroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to represent his village, so he's got to be calm and collective, right?
All right, so this is going to be my first non-mandatory shop of the run. So not very much money here. So I'm going to buy 3 bounty fertilizer to satisfy the other requirement of the quest I started, and then I need a minimum of 1 strength drop and 4 magic drops. And we definitely have enough, but if you have extra money there, you try to buy maybe an extra drop or 2, just so you don't have to rely on luck later. But even though I had enough money to buy an extra one, I'm not going to do it, just because that's how important money is. Alright, so we're just on our way back to the village, riding our piggy.
So, fun little tidbit, you can actually sell the fish you just caught. Then you'll have to run all the way back to the seafront just to fish another one.
Yeah, I definitely didn't do that yesterday.
Definitely not.
Yeah, so one of the things he's doing there, we're kind of skimming over that, but this game has a mechanic called boar drifting. It's going to be your best friend in some cases when you're moving around the terrain, because the board does not turn very fast normally.
And I guess also, if you notice there, people in this world apparently can't swim. So if you fall in water at all in the game, anywhere, it considers it like voiding out or falling. But it happens to be that it sends us to the other side of the town, which is a lot quicker than just walking there. So we definitely decide to just fall in the water.
That
Yeah.
looked really goofy. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, NieR wanted to go for a swim, or should I say Papa?
Papa. Alright, so just gonna grab some things from my shelf here. One will be 500 gold, and the other one will be a magic drop. And really, without wasting time, that shop I just did for drops is only 1 of 2 in the entire run that we do. So we're making it worth, like, all those drops are going to carry us for the next hour and a half. More or less. Alright, so we're letting Coppola know everything is good. But, she's letting us know that, now we gotta go to the junk heap, which is, out in the northern plain. But before we go, we're gonna take care of some stuff. And I guess now right there is a really good example of, if you haven't noticed, you can actually start side rolls in the air. That's, I would say, a relatively new optimization as well. Alright, so we're going to talk to this lady and finish her quest. And then we're going to start a new quest. And this will be the other things that we bought.
Yep.
So now we've netted something in the realm of like 2k for just buying some items that were more or less on our way. And all we have to do now is just talk to Devila. She's a little drunk.
I mean, what do you do in the middle of the day?
Yeah,
In a town where the sun never sets.
in a crisis like this, I don't blame her at all. Alright, so we're on our way to the junk heap.
This will be one of 3 times that we go to the junk heap, I believe.
Inside the junk heap 3 times, yes.
What do you know about this junk?
And 2 happen almost immediately back to back.
Yep.
Because we have some stuff that we have to do in and out of them.
No one remembers how to use
So this little part here is going to be awkward with the boar. He just gets locked up here, and there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. I'd say it's like 1 in 15 that you get a good angle so that you don't get locked up there.
all the time.
And he just slams right into that ladder, which allows him to immediately jump off into a roll, which saves time getting up the ladders. And instead of holding up on there, you're going to see him jump up a lot of these ladders, which is definitely a lot faster.
Absolutely. And yeah, if it isn't clear by now, this game does a really good job of integrating 2D and 3D in the same world. So you'll notice there, like when I was climbing up the scaffolding, it put you in 2D mode. Same with when you go into houses and such. There's even times where it does it in a bird's eye view 2D.
We'll see a bit of that later.
Yeah.
We saw a little bit of that in some of the combat rooms earlier as well, right?
Yep.
Yes.
It's a little bit more intense later when we see it, but we'll get to that when it shows up.
And I guess technically you go in the junk heap 4 times. But
Yeah.
you only come to the area 3 times, if that makes sense.
So he's got to go get the all-important titanium drops that he needs.
Yeah, the boy has asked us to help him out and find his mom. Anyway, here's some new tech. Normally you have to push this block all the way over there, but I can do this.
And now we bust them up and take the
So I did a slide, double jump, to roll, to swing. And it gives you just enough momentum to get over on the other side without having to push the block at all.
Yeah, normally, and before this new recent way of doing things with these improvements, he used to be able to push the block a little bit, just a little bit, and be able to do a double jump into a roll.
So if you'll be noticing these 2 trips I'm in at the junk heap, I'll be killing every single enemy that I come by, and this is not mandatory by the game, but is mandatory for the route. Because of how important money is, and money is, at least from enemies, the most easily obtained here in the junk heap, so we try to maximize our equity in it while we're here.
These enemies also have the highest drop chance,
That's right.
so it's very
They're always,
important.
every single enemy in here is guaranteed to drop something.
Something that I believe is unique to the junk heap as well.
That's right.
These enemy spawns are actually semi-random. You'll
Yeah.
always have the same amount, but the length of time between each spawn, and then there's also a bunch of bombs that you'll see later on that'll spawn after you kill all the enemies in certain rooms. The amount of time it also takes those to spawn can be completely random.
Oh,
So you could be waiting for a bomb that might not spawn for a whole 15 seconds.
yeah, there's just nothing you can do about it. Alright, so I'm just collecting all the drops in here. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the fish earlier, where even though you need to catch a shaman fish, it won't just give it to you. But even this portion of the run is still technically a tutorial. It's how I mentioned before how tutorials are really elegantly placed in this game. So what the guy in the junk heap shop asked us for 3 titanium alloy, like Mash had said. But titanium alloy are only really dropped at this point in the game from specific enemies. In this case, it'll be the last enemy I faced in the last room, the last 2 enemies in this room. And just naturally, they have a chance to drop a rare item, but to kind of introduce you to rare drops, the game makes it mandatory for them to drop it. So it's not like I have to keep killing these until I get 3 titanium alloy or anything like that. So here we go. Looking for 1 fist here. I didn't get it though. So you'll see I got the 2 titanium alloy there. You can even see it gave me the message. So now we just need to go give them to the boy.
Yeah, and while this game early on does a good job of tutorializing things without making it feel that way, this game does in fact have tutorials, but you have to unlock them. I know that sounds strange, but we'll get to that if it actually happens. But essentially, enemies later on will have a chance to drop not just items, but also rune magic words and tutorial updates.
Yeah, there's not many games I know where enemies drop tutorials.
Yeah, very interesting way of doing things, but...
Yeah.
What that pop-up during the board fight was? Because I saw something pop up for a moment there.
That's right.
Yep.
Alright, so we're giving the brothers here their drops. But unfortunately, the little one, in these trying times, is missing his mom. And the last the 2 boys saw their mom was in the junk heap. So we're gonna go back in and see if we can find their mom.
So does that mean that getting tutorial drops can slow you down if it causes that pop-up to appear?
For second, yes, it would cost you time.
Yeah,
But
more
we
you
just consider it negligible.
Yeah, it later on in the game when you're getting a lot of word drops or the tutorial drops, it can be a little problematic, but it doesn't really cost you a lot of time because you could just mash your way through it instantly. You almost never see the message on screen.
Okay.
All right, so the brothers gave us a elevator code so we can get further down into the junk heap. So things are going to look a little different here now.
So one of the first enemies on this floor is going to be another one of the machines, but there's a very unique way of handling it. So it's on one of the elevated platforms, and Skate is going to try to use his Dark Hand to kill it before it actually jumps off the other end of the platform.
Here we go. Nice. Very nice. 2 fists on that group is really good, even though I got blown up. Okay. So here's the first example of these things not spawning on time. So you can see I just entered the room and nothing's happening, but something's supposed to be happening right now. So what can you do about it? Well, you can sit here and wait. That's it.
Oh,
That's all you can do. Hey, what's up?
really weird. Like, if that happened on your first playthrough, you might leave the room. Like,
That is definitely something that can happen.
Yeah, there's been a couple times where I've left rooms trying to figure out where I was actually supposed to go, and then realizing that's actually the way I was supposed to go. And it's also very easy to get lost in here.
So here's kind of another example of a good 3D to 2D transition on this cart right here. It does it really elegantly, and when you're playing, you might not even really notice.
Yeah, this Martin Kite ride is pretty interesting the first time you get to do it. So one thing I do want to point out is that the minecart has a set speed, but if you're holding forward in the direction the minecart's moving, it actually moves faster. So that's an important thing to run. It's very small, but it makes up.
Oh yeah, you'll definitely lose 30 seconds here if you're not holding the analog stick in the right direction. It can just be kind of hectic, because right now I'm trying to shoot all these enemies while mashing right bumper, making sure my left analog stick is kept in the direction of the cart, and using my right analog stick to point the direction of the shots. So it's kind of like a twin stick setup here.
Yeah, when you're casting magic, you also move at a slower speed as well. because it has this like slow down time effect, and well, your character might still move in full speed except for running. Everything else slows down just a tap.
Alright, so the same situation as before. We're hoping these 2 columns spawn instantly, and they have. So now we just need the bombs to spawn. I can already hear it spawning, so that was really, really good. Break the first one, and the second bomb's already ready for us. So we can do the other one.
So Skate did something specific here. He grabbed the furthest bomb to blow up the closest door, and the closest bomb to blow up the furthest door. There's a reason he did that, and that's because he's used to running Replicant as well. If you don't do that in that order for Replicant, you won't have enough time. Just because there's a bit of a difference with the characters' models that affect their speed and their height and throw distance.
Alright, so we're going into Geppetto here. So to start, I'm going to use a magic drop, do a double charged lance into the center of the hand, and try to get 2 more off before it flies away. So that's 3, 4, and now I'm going to spam Dark Blast by holding the analog stick to the left. And you can just completely skip this phase. I would say this phase takes 4 times as long casually, because you're not really intended to hit those hands when they're off the screen there, so it makes that much, much quicker than casually. Here, I'm going to let all the enemies come towards me. I'm going to jump out of the way, and hopefully I hit as many of them as I can. Almost all, so I got them all in 2. That's pretty good. And you'll be noticing I'm going to be doing as best as I can here to grab as many drops as I can, because that's how important it is. Otherwise, from here until the next phase, it's just getting rid of these enemies and getting their drops as quick as possible. That was a really good fist there. Okay. The enemy turned green there. I don't know why. I'm not going to ask. Alright, so then now these cylinders will come up, and we just need to break them all down. Alright, and then comes to the main portion of the fight, the actual defense system Geppetto. So he shoots out these missiles here, and you can just do this little rocking back and forth motion with your rolls to avoid them pretty easily, and to make sure that they all go to the same spot so they're not just going all over the place. Then once he fires his laser here, we throw the bomb in his mouth, use another magic drop, wait a second, and then spam 3 dark fists. Yeah, again, you're not actually intended to damage him like that. You're really supposed to just beat him with the bombs. But it just works out that way. So if you get all your dark fists in that little phase here, you should be able to hold your magic drop long enough here to throw another bomb in his face. And then once you wait a second, you just throw 1 more dark fist, and he's dead.
Yeah, the game doesn't intend you to be able to damage him from that distance, but because the Dark Hand spell actually has a pretty large and obscene range, it can definitely damage things through walls or out of bounds.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
So Skate's found the boy's mother now, and he's going to deliver the news.
I'm going to say I couldn't find her. Not going to completely hurt his feelings.
I didn't say what news you had to deliver.
Right.
I mean, but the other son there is smart enough to know exactly what happened. So even though you tell the lie to the youngest, the oldest one still knows what happened.
Is that just faster dialogue to say you couldn't find her?
It honestly doesn't
I
matter.
picked my preference for today.
Yeah, it doesn't change anything with the dialogue.
It makes it like 4 text boxes longer or something. But for how fast text boxes mash, it's again pretty negligible.
Yeah.
Got shades there.
There's like maybe 2 or 3 situations that I can think of off the top of my head where the selection you make in dialogue actually matters. Even like when the game asks you where to go, you can pick one place and then go to the other place, no problem. But generally, the dialogue options don't matter too much.
Yeah, the first important one would have been when he left the area for the first time, and if he chose to not go visit Yona first, the game would have just made him go visit Yona anyways and waste a bit more time. So
it's funny that you bring that up, actually, because that's a very good point. So earlier it asked me if I wanted to go see Popola or Yona, our daughter, and I actually picked Popola, but I went to go see Yona instead, and the only reason for that is because Popola is the first option.
Yeah, that happens a lot sometimes without thinking about it.
So just goes to show, like, it doesn't usually end up mattering too much.
In the later parts of the run, it does matter because it actually changes up the routing order a little bit.
Yeah, there's one of them that's pretty important, but other than that, it's not too bad. So we have to defeat those 4 small shades there to progress. But now we're gonna have round 2 in 3 parts. Well, 4 parts even, with the first time we fought this boss, Hook.
Yeah, aptly named The Return of Hook.
So again, I'm going to be mashing Dark Blast here. I'm going to carefully time my jumps so that I only have to jump once, so I can continue mashing as soon as possible. Very good. Alright. And maybe if you can notice, Hook's over there now, so we're just going to travel over there. So I just did that jump there to not have to climb down a ladder and then back up a ladder. And then later in this run, we can actually skip that ladder I just went up, but I don't have the ability to do that yet. So the strat for this phase of Hook 2, you do 2 Dark Fists, mash Dark Blast, and then that enables his attack gauge up on his tail. And sometimes if he's nice, he'll actually just slam his tail on the ground, and it makes it really easy to hit it. But otherwise, you can see I'm having to like aim upward in the air and make sure none of the enemies hit me. So I'm having to move around, which then makes me have to adjust my Dark Blast aim. So it can give you some trouble sometimes, but we got through it no problem. Here, you just have to go to all the right attack gauges. And I use Dark Blast and 1 Dark Lance here later to make pretty quick work of these enemies here. Small Fry. So 1 Dark Lance there and another one to take the rest out. Double Jump Blast, Double Jump Blast.
I really like this part with this boss because it just shows a whole lot of the different ways they are going to manipulate the cameras in certain bosses and stuff.
Yeah.
Really well.
Further exemplifies the 2D, 3D transition as well. So I'm literally, as we speak, transitioning from 2D to 3D, and it feels really, really, really smooth. 2 Dark Fists, and I'm going to stand in hopefully a perfect position. This game, a lot of times when you enable a boss's attack gauge, likes to really just give you the worst camera angle possible, but if I stand in this particular spot, it doesn't do that. Alright, and then on this phase, I'm just going to mash Dark Blast on the hand, and I kind of compare this to Kingdom Hearts. A lot of bosses in Kingdom Hearts usually have like an attack where when they're doing it, you just can't do anything to them, but we can alleviate that by just jumping off the battleground, and we just completely skip that phase. Works pretty well.
It works?
Yes.
Yeah.
So goofy.
Yeah, it saves several seconds at
Yeah.
the minimum. So, because there would be this conversation where the boss would be talking while it's invincible, and you can't do anything about it. So, jumping off like he did just skips it entirely.
And in truth, perhaps death is the greatest comfort we can offer her.
Alright, so after the boss fight, Skip's going to, well, in his cutscene, Skip, he impaled the boss, finally, on the center of the town. So I don't think everybody in town's going to be happy about that. But anyways, Kanye is back on the previous platform he was at when he entered the town, so he's going to go back there and wrap up the end of the area here for now.
I fat-fingered Dark Hand there, sorry.
It happens.
Speaking of which, my natural instinct was to say, dang, if only I were playing on a PS3 controller, would one of you all want to maybe take this time to explain the differences between, say, running this on PS3 versus 360, or even the 2 different versions of this game that are out right now?
Would you like to take that, Mash? I think you have more experience with Replicant than me.
Yeah.
PS3 version.
So the main differences between this, as far as a speedrun standpoint, is 360 just plays faster with the Gestalt version. The PS3 version specifically, that's only available on the PlayStation actually, is it's a Japanese only title. So you can only play it in Japanese, and it specifically has a different localization. And that is just that the character that we see as Papa NieR is actually Brother NieR in that title, is how they're commonly referred to. And it has some slight implications when it comes to speedrunning. One being he's a shorter character, so his height box is a lot smaller. He has a shorter jump and shorter rolls as well. And I think Skate recently found a difference in their running and walking speeds.
Yeah, and that's what you had mentioned with the bombs earlier.
Yeah.
When you carry a bomb in Replicant, you're tied to the walking speed of the character. And I would say the walking speed of this version of NieR is probably at least 3 times faster.
Yeah.
So when you're only able to move that slow holding a bomb, you have to do those bombs in a certain order. But in this version, it doesn't matter so much.
But outside those differences, the only thing that changes is how the characters interact with the localization. Being Papa NieR has a daughter-father situation, and Brother NieR is a brother-sister situation. So.
That's right. In a casual sense, that's really the only difference between the two. So a lot of people will feel super obligated to go find the NieR Replicant version to see, maybe get a different gameplay experience, but I would say get it whatever one you're more comfortable with.
Yeah.
What's Facade?
I would mention too that it's the 10th anniversary of NieR, as Railcoon mentioned at the beginning of the stream, and they just recently announced a remaster or a reboot or a upgrade, or whatever you want to call it, of this, and they're apparently going to be using the Replicant version, even though everyone here in the West got this version.
Yeah, so Replicant's actually the intended original version of the game.
Right.
So, yeah.
So something that you may not have noticed, coming into the desert, Skate actually took a very deliberate line around what we call fountains. They're those little building-like things that appear out in the open desert area. If you go too close to one of those, you'll actually get a dialogue and a little cutscene about it. But there's a spot later that's actually an auto-scroller, and we're going to use that to play
Not
that
anymore.
dialogue. Not anymore?
Doesn't work.
No.
Never mind then.
Alright, so I'm going to be doing some movement here. It's really precise to have it optimal.
Help me out here.
Almost got it. So yeah, you can have that movement go really, really slick with some sword slashes and side rolls in air. But that's good enough for me.
Yeah, so instead of walking around the really, really long way, Skate kind of just made a cut and somewhat of a beeline right to the other end.
Yeah.
So going
There's
into
a,
places that you normally can't, shouldn't get to, should I say.
And yeah, I guess we haven't necessarily introduced it, but yeah, this is the town of Facade. It's a desert town. All the members speak at least to the game, a foreign language. But fun fact, the language that these people in this game speak are actually a dying but real language. So there's your fun fact there.
It's a combination of actual languages, believe it or
Yeah.
not. That are old world languages, and there's a person who's responsible for that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they had designed the entire language for this town. And the main important thing about this town, and they'll stress it in the story, is that this town runs off rules, and they have a lot of them. And a lot. And that comes into what we end up doing next.
Yeah, right now, one of the rules of the town is that any newcomer to the town has to be given a tour. So that's what this little girl Fira is doing right now. But after this one, we're going to tell her we just don't want to do the rest of the tour. And in the name of speed, I agree.
It's a very long tour.
Yes. I'd mentioned god angles before. This is the other one I would consider a god angle. When Fear comes and stops here, there's a particular way that you can stand so that you don't have to move once you're done talking to one, and you'll just be ready to talk to the other. But it's super hard. I've only gotten it like maybe twice ever. So yeah, you saw I had to do that little turn there. Alright, so now is the first random portion of the run where luck comes into play. From all those enemies we killed in the junk heap, I need to have enough money here to buy a weapon. And in a run, if you don't have enough, the run's over. but I have saves ready in case not, and it looks like we are going to be short, so I'm just going to load a save and pretend it didn't happen. Hope y'all are cool with that.
John, what didn't happen? What are you talking about?
That's
you clearly
exactly
just
what
bought the
I
weapon.
mean. That's right.
You made a save right there, and
Yeah.
you're just reloading it. It's no problem.
That's right. So yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about with how important luck is in the run. Like, when you're doing a normal, just any given old attempt at this, even if you're not playing this game at the top level, for how much time you lose by not having this weapon, it doesn't really matter how good you are at the game, you just reset. It's kind of brutal in that sense. But there's just really nothing else you can do about it without just losing an absurd amount of time for how hard it is to get money in this game. So I was just under 1,000 short, so that's like, what, 4 items maybe in the junk heap? It was really close, but just not on this
So the
one.
different.
Four basic drops that were like 1 or 2 rares.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do the different level drops you get from the sell for different amounts? Would it could have just
Yes.
be like a different distribution of drops would have gotten you there as well?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So it could either be, say 4 drops I missed, or 4 drops that could have been better,
Okay.
but just didn't get the good luck, unfortunately. So that would have absolutely been a reset in a RTA attempt.
That also goes all the way back to the start of the run, where I mentioned that if you get good drops early on, the orange ones, when you're all the way back at the start of the game after the prologue and in the area, it can really help with that buy.
Yeah, that's like one maybe good drop I could have gotten at the beginning that would have saved that, but that's the kind of rules we're playing with in this speedrun. And I don't know about you all, but I'm a gambler, and I love it. This whole run is just about odds when you get down to the high level. Alright, so these wolves here are going to start charging at us when we make our way to the Barren Temple here. I guess the story part of what's going on right now is the king's leader has gone missing, and they're hoping he's here in this temple. So one of the youth of the town, Fira here, is giving us a personal escort to the Barren Temple. But these wolves are going to try to attack us. So we just hopefully on all of them do 1, maybe 2 Dark Fists. And one of the things that we get dividends on right away is this weapon we bought. Alme had mentioned earlier that weapons can increase your magic stat. And say I didn't have this weapon equipped, those dark hands I just did would not have killed those wolves. So right away we're getting dividends paid out by buying this weapon.
Yeah, it's very important to have these kinds of damage increases, whether it be physical or magic, because at this point we're pretty underleveled for most of this stuff.
Right. Just like in any RPG, you're kind of intended to like kill enemies throughout and stuff, but if you're not careful for how low level you are and just playing this with skipping everything, you can definitely pay the price sometimes.
Do you have an estimate on like what level you would be intended to be in a normal gameplay?
So right now I think I'm level 8. I could definitely see yourself being level 14, 15 here if you were playing enough.
Yeah, casually I believe those people would reach Facade closer to 20.
Wow. So that's definitely the hardest set of wolves to get. If you can get them in 2 Dark Fists, like, you never complain ever. That was very good.
That was very good. When they beeline for you in pretty much a straight line, that's always really good to see.
Yeah. So I'm going to wait here until Fira cuts in a little bit. I guess something we haven't mentioned here is, why not just say, I'm not going to deal with Fira and just go right to the Barren Temple. The game makes you stay with her. So you have to stay within a certain distance of her, but once she gets to a certain point, you can just go on ahead without worrying.
Yeah, if you happen to, like, cut through and just leave her behind, you'd lose her and have to reset and do the whole bit again, which takes a lot of time.
Yep. So this is the Barren Temple. When you're looking for or when I guess anyone in the game were to, say go through this temple, there's certain trials that you have to go through to get to the end of the temple, and there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them.
7
of them even. And they all have certain rules, like you can't jump, or you can't use magic, or you can't stay still, or you can't run, or you can't roll. Like, there's all these different things. So you saw there, the first rule is no leaping rabbit, and my guess is y'all can probably figure out that means jumping, because obviously just jumping over these boxes would be the easiest. So instead, we just have to go through it like normal. And if I do everything right here, I'll be catching a pretty good cycle, so I don't have to lose any time. So you have to pull out that box 2 segments, then pull it a half segment. And then, yeah, see, if I had done that just quick enough, I would have made it in time before these came. So, not a big deal, though. So then you break the block, on to the next one. So, if I got a good spawn here, I'm going to go for some new hidden tech, so to speak.
I wonder what this missing.
I had mentioned how important money is in the run. It looks like it didn't spawn, yeah. So, when you're... This is like the only part of this section of the run where you're just sitting here waiting. So sometimes an item can spawn there, but then sometimes an item can spawn over there. And you're definitely not supposed to be over there at this point in the game, but with some nice movement you can actually get over there. But no items spawned over there, so we're not going to do that.
I like using the Dark Blast as a pointer there for explaining what you're talking about.
Pretty handy, right? So the rule for this room is that you can't stay still, so definitely makes this the easiest trial of the temple. And if you didn't notice just there, all you have to do is stand on a block to beat it. You don't even have to swing your sword or anything. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, all of the blocks like self-implode, and just by standing on them or making contact with them. So that's always super nice. And I like to call this like the Mario side-scroller section here.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
So this is by far the hardest trial. I hope I get it. The rule here is that you can't run, but generally when we start rolls, it's in a run. So you have to start a roll, not in a run, and there's just very little analog range on the stick to be able to do that. So here we go. Okay, that was definitely a good walk. You could very clearly see him walk, but unfortunately I've gotten myself stuck here. So if I were to run at all there, like, I just fail. Okay, very good. I don't mess with that one. That's such a hard trial to get first try.
Yeah, you can literally lose a lot of time on this run, because the other thing is, too, the other part of the rule amendment there was he also couldn't use magic. So that was what the spewing bat was.
Yep, magic spewing bat.
I think Weiss would take offense to that.
So for this one, you just can't use guards, so it's pretty easy. And I tried to go for a swag strat there. I said I was going to go for it once, where you do the shots you need to do and then jump back over the crate before the box breaks, so I'm just going to do it the right way now.
I guess we'll have to play by the rules.
Just going for a little bit of swag. And I mean, technically it saves time.
Yeah, the old way of doing this was we'd run all along the right-hand side and just jump across.
Yeah,
and get around,
but pretty slow.
Yeah, just these improvements have been a big time save in general.
Yeah.
Just tiny little things here and there.
Alright, so this room, we can't use magic again. So I'm just going to use these boxes to avoid the projectiles. And use a little jump there to get a little extra distance. So you can see if I had done that jump earlier, this is where I would have ended up. So you might think to yourself, oh, why don't you just skip all these trials and come over here? Once again, showing that the game just doesn't like you doing things early. The game just pretty much gives you nothing if you try to skip all this. Every single one of these rooms is a trigger for the next. So unfortunately, no real good options to skip anything other than to maybe get a drop like I was mentioning.
So the rule for this room is you cannot use melee, so conveniently magic is still easier to use and much better, so we just make use of that. But the one thing to point out with what Skate mentioned, there's actually a soft lock here. You can skip right to the last area and skip all the trials, but unfortunately because the game wants you to do things in the correct order, you would just get stuck there, and it would hard set your checkpoint there as well. So
yeah, not really any way to get back either.
Unfortunately not from the soft lock location.
Yeah. Alright, so we're in another side-scrolling room headed to the last trial before the boss. And unlike all the other trials we've seen so far, this trial has enemies. And a mini boss.
Mini boss that is guaranteed to drop a rare item.
Yes. You know what? I'm gonna go for this drop. Why not? Iron ore. That's not really good. But I would say out of any area in the game where you can find random items on the ground, this area by far has the best equity in having good drops. Like, I would say half of the things you can get are good for a speedrun. So whenever I see them here, I try to go for them now. So the rule here, unfortunately, is no evasive mouse, which means no rolling. And for how much we roll in this game, it's very hard to just not muscle memory into rolling. And furthermore, if you get hit at all, recovering is super slow.
Yeah, we also don't have access to block either since we changed up for a third spell. So
Right.
Something that Skate does in this fight as well, very carefully, is he manages his mana very specifically so that when the new waves spawn, he's at a full mana bar. And particularly on the final boss of the room, that can save a bunch of time.
yeah. And as long as he gets a kill too, the blood that spills from the enemies is actually what gets absorbed by Weiss and recharges the mana bar ever so slightly faster. So
Wow, I
you'll
got
notice,
elaborate machine here from the boss that is by far the rarest drop you can get, and it's somewhere in the realm of under 3%.
that one's actually guaranteed.
You get a drop always, but you don't always get the best drop.
Oh yeah, that is correct.
Elaborate machine sells for a lot more than the other two, so that's going to help us out later in the run, hopefully.
I think on average it drops between a 1,000 to 5,000 drop.
That's right.
Yeah.
Alright, so on our way to the next boss. I would say this is easily the most consistent boss in the run, but still does require skill. And aiming at that.
Gonna make full use of that over the shoulder camera.
Alright, so hopefully I just get this perfectly. I'm going to be using Dark Lance here to break these cubes. The pink cubes are the one that you have to break. So the way to get a perfect fight here is to hit as many cubes as possible and as few shots as possible. And so far we're on pace for that. And I guess just to let you all know ahead of time, halfway through this fight, there's going to be a little bit of time where we don't have to do anything. So I'm going to maybe try to show you all a good presentation of the difference between a quick roll and a regular roll. Because this is really going to be the only good chance to do it. But hopefully y'all can really get a grasp of how much faster quick rolling is compared to regular rolling. And very good there. So only one extra shot, very good. So I'm going to go to the other side of the room regular rolling, and then I'm going to come back doing quick rolling, and y'all tell me if you can tell a difference.
So yeah, regular rolling, and then quick rolling. You can see the speed of the animation is much faster on the return.
He also has like a little stutter step in between the regular rolls, where you have to wait to roll again, it looks like.
That's
Yeah.
right, and that's what we're talking about with the recovery of the roll. There's just way too much recovery on a regular and a back roll for it to be faster. And yeah, I guess just to show why I'm standing here in a corner, this phase of the fight, you literally can't damage the boss or do anything useful. So I use this as a time to sit in the corner and think about how my run's been going so far. I don't know about you all, I think it's been going pretty good.
It reminds me of we had Void on once doing DKC2, and he does an update about how the run has been going at a similar point. Like, you know, this level went pretty good.
Yeah.
I figured.
You definitely had good luck with all the money. That's for certain.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
we got all the money that we needed at every point in the game.
Yeah,
So this is phase 2 of the fight. It's definitely the simplest. You just have to avoid the shockwave that comes when he slams each of his hands on the ground here, and just give him the one piece. Alright, so phase 3, very similar to phase 1, except we're dealing with horizontal racks instead of vertical, or rather vertical racks instead of horizontal racks.
and they fire lasers this time,
Right,
which hurt a lot.
definitely.
So while this boss isn't particularly difficult to do, it's just doing it optimally is what matters. And because the cubes are moving, it can be a little tricky to aim the shots at them because we're doing it in an over-the-shoulder perspective, the actual shots come out slightly to the left of NieR.
That's right. You might notice when I'm throwing out these dark lances, some crosshairs do show up, so you're like intended to like aim your shot and fire it, but we gotta go fast, you know?
So you're saying you're just no-scoping the boss because you're that good?
Yeah.
I got the double. So there's a fairly rare chance that you can use one dark lance and hit 2 cubes. It's just almost luck-based, it feels like. But I got it there, so that was pretty nice.
Yeah, but he's definitely like no-scoping enemies with dark lines, and that's generally how most of the run goes when we use that spell.
Yeah.
We don't want to take the time to line up the shots because, like I mentioned way earlier, there's a bit of a slowdown effect that happens, and it reduces your movement speed and your ability to react to things.
Left a little too early. Okay. You have to talk to the King of Facade here 3 times, then run away, then talk to him again. It's kind of silly, but it's okay. Good friendships pay off.
Yeah, so we just got a spell that we'll never use called Magic Wall.
That's right.
It's useful casually in some situations, but in a speedrun, we're never going to use it.
Let's go back.
So yeah, at this point, he's going to go back to the village and go talk to Popola.
And yeah, just to remind people, these are the fountains that Ame was talking about earlier. If you get too close to any of them, it's just a pure, like, I don't know, 7-second time loss from some, for a little cutscene.
Yeah.
So my movement here is specifically so that I don't get close enough to trigger any of those throughout the entire run.
Yeah, those fountains are tied to a side quest, which is usable and doable much later, but it's not worth the time that it takes to do it.
No. If you had to say maybe go back to the Barren Temple later in the run, the place we just came from, maybe, but
yeah,
we just
fountains are just an additional fast travel for us
right.
for this particular area.
Maybe. What do you think, Kaine?
Don't care.
So chat's been going on and on about Father NieR versus Brother NieR. Do you have a preference?
Oh boy.
That's a long-running debate within the community, but I want to say that most of us are in favor of Papa NieR, but that's just maybe because that's what we started with when we looked at this game.
Okay, alright, I'll be the one. I absolutely enjoy Papa NieR more in a speedrun, but I would much rather play as Brother NieR. No DMs, please.
Agree with Scale on this one, actually. I would much rather have Brother NieR. Sorry, Mash.
That's okay. That's okay. I definitely agree with the speedrun aspect, just because Papa NieR is faster. But I can't read Japanese yet, so I fumbled my way through that one. So maybe I'll appreciate it more.
Yeah, I can't read it either.
Maybe I'll appreciate it more when I actually can speedrun that one properly without, fumbling my way through menus. So. But Skate just went back to talk to his daughter Yona. They had a very interesting shared dream, and then they're going to talk to Popola about this. And we'll be off to our next important area of the game, which I find the most enjoyable casually. But in speedrun, we don't.
I think chat might find it the most interesting at the least.
So that's one of the only times I've seen you leave one of the shinies on the shelf. What's the item that wasn't important enough to pick up?
Honestly, the best answer I can give you, Railcoon, is that we only pick up a drop from the house if it's a magic or strength drop, or if it's a significant chunk of money. So when it's not either of those two, sometimes there'll be like seeds or flowers. There's a whole portion of this game where you can actually run your own garden. Shout outs to the gardeners out there.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we don't get are things like that would just never ever be useful or sell for such a negligible amount of money.
Yeah, generally they would sell for like 10. So that's the average price of most of that stuff would sell for 10.
So after having our little shared dream here and talking to Popel about it, she suggests we go to a portion of the game called the Forest of the Myth. And yeah, look, all I'm trying to tell you all is that I don't know of too many RPGs, especially action RPGs, that have text adventure bosses in them. But this is one of those action RPGs. And there's 2 of them even, so
That's
I hope y'all are in
amazing.
for it. Yes.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah, I love this section of the game because it's a big lore dump, but it's not necessarily spoiling this particular game, but it's spoiling stories that of other fairy tales or the previous games that led up to NieR, like Drakengard, for instance, is one of the ones that's talked about in the Forest of Myth, because it's a database essentially for old world tales. So it's really cool. A lot of people think this section was just done the way it was because of lack of budget. This game suffered from one of those issues during development, but they did a really good job, I think, overall, for the time that this game came out.
So yeah, the first time we have to come here in the run, the text adventure gives us the same answer every single time. So it's just option 1, option 3, and then option 1 for the riddles here. The second time around, it's not going to be as easy. We're actually going to have to use our text adventure skills to actually beat the boss.
Yeah, there's 2 optional ones here that we skip, which is one for a boy and a girl that we would jump into their dreams and do their ones. One of them being a choose your own like path kind of adventure style one. So you get to choose like the left or right path or the north path or south path, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because it has like a different dynamic. The story changes as you go through them. Sometimes you can get locked in a loop. It's pretty interesting. And then there's another one, which is a big, huge riddle solving thing with a bunch of interesting mechanics. But, I mean, you might have heard them before in your life for that one.
And personally, something I find so special about this game is just how many different inspirations and genres it pulls from. But I feel like it's super easy to miss quite literally every single one if you're not really paying attention, or if you're skipping cutscenes. So for example, when I just faced the last boss, Shariar, in the Barren Temple, when you watch the cutscene after the boss, the king of the town actually does a thing where he puts his mask up in the air and it does a little fanfare, and it's a complete direct ripoff / inspiration of Zelda.
Yeah.
You have things like what I just did with text mashing, or text adventures rather, which again, find me another game that has that. Like, it's just so unique. Then if you've been paying real close attention so far, you may have even seen bullet shmup patterns from enemies. This game even hones inspiration from Japanese bullet hell shmups, all in an action RPG that isn't focused on any of those. I just think that's so amazing for a video game that came out in 2010.
The only game I can think of that really mixes genres like that is a bit of a meme, Frog Fractions.
Yeah. Yeah, the bullet hell stuff comes back in Automata, which I think a lot of people would have played and been more familiar with. They definitely do a much better job with those sections. But again, like they use a lot of the same mechanics that this game started with.
So we're talking to Yona here, and she's saying she has a pen pal, and she wants us to go talk to her pen pal. So that's what we're going to do. But this also introduces probably one of the newest texts in the entire run that I came up with my time with the game recently. So normally, and this will be shown later, but normally, as you've seen, we've had to walk all the way around to get to the southern plain. But if you just break that box up there, you can do a double jump roll to sword slash, and instead of having to go all the way around, you can just go up like that. And there'll be an advanced version of that later in the run when I have a different weapon. But yeah, let's go check out Yona's pen pal, boyfriend. It's gonna be fun. This is one of 2 parts in the run where the Boar is going to introduce some luck. So looks like we're fine here, but you can even see those shades were definitely charging towards me. And if any of those shades even touch you with an attack, while you're trying to charge up, you can't ride the boar. They'll just keep hitting you over and over and over again, and you'll never be able to ride the boar. So, kind of a weird thing where luck is introduced in a place where it doesn't really seem obvious that it's luck-based. And yeah, I messed up my boar drift. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt that poor boar.
Oh, we all noticed.
So this is another example. The lobby of this mansion here is completely a direct inspiration from Resident Evil 1's mansion lobby. You also have the fact that most of this is a fixed, I guess it's a fixed 3D section, but it works almost like a 2D section because of it.
Yeah.
And it has the thing like in Resident Evil games where like if you're holding a direction, when you go to the next camera angle, you'll be going the right way until you move your stick at all. It happens in like Final Fantasy X, Resident Evil, stuff like that. So just yet another example of how much this game is inspired by others.
Yeah. Everything in black and white is totally intentional part of the story. There's a lot to explain about why it's like that. Just note that the mansion being black and white is perfectly normal. Nothing's wrong with the game.
Yeah, it's to symbolically reference that whenever you're in the mansion, time is frozen. And I think that, does a pretty good job of showcasing that.
So yeah, Skate's running around to collect some keys to access different parts of the mansion so he can finally figure out what's going on here. And now Shades show up.
Yep, so this is the final of the 3 characters that you may be familiar with if you've played NieR Automata. He might not look the same as he does in NieR Automata, but I can assure you it's somewhat of the same person. At least the same name. And I guess no one's brought it up yet. You might notice I'm not rolling or running or anything. This game ties you to a walking animation.
True enough.
And until later, there's not really much you can do about that. In Replicant, it's actually faster to jump. Because, again, that walking speed thing I mentioned from earlier. So one of the keys is in this room, and you have to defeat the 2 shades in there. Depending on the angle that they're at, none of your magic can just hit them at all. But I got really good luck there with a double Dark Fist.
Yeah, occasionally if you throw out the Dark Hand, because that room's so small, the Dark Hand just goes past the enemy for some reason.
Yeah, I usually use a Dark Lance as a backup, but I always try to go for the Dark Fist because it just does so much more damage. I'll do another double here. Just like that. So instead of trying, like have to get past the enemies and everything like that, it's just so much faster to just do a double Dark Fist and call it a day.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm actually going to kill a couple of these guys here. There's some... okay. Yeah, these enemies can drop some pretty useful items. So I don't mind just killing them on the way here to hopefully get a couple of them. But it doesn't look like I did. Yeah.
Yeah, based on what you were saying earlier, I'm assuming the defense drops aren't very useful.
Right. I mean, it's only as useful as how bad the player is. I mean, if a player was always dying, then that's of course where he would come into play.
Yeah, they're more of a safety item, if anything.
So we have our next boss here, Grimoire Noir, or Grimoire Rubrum, excuse me. Kind of fits in the lore of the game where there's these different magic books. So this is the second one we're encountering. The first one's on our team, Grimoire Vice.
Who's the white, and this is the red, and then later we'll see the black book, Grimoire Noir. Which Skate keeps mentioning.
So you can see in this phase here, like you can't really damage them. So this introduces like enemies that can't be damaged by physical attacks. This is the first one where this is the case. But now in this phase, when he's moving around and stuff, we can at least be breaking down the barrier. And if you get a really, really good luck here, I'm not even going to try to explain how it works, but if you get really, really good circumstances, you can make this fight a one-phase fight, and it's only happened twice ever, I believe. But I'll take a 2-cycle there any day.
Yeah, there's a pretty incredible backstory to these magic books, but unfortunately 90% of all of these games, including Automata, Drakengard series that leads up to this, and this game itself, 90% of the actual lore is actually in supplemental material. So, just a fun fact.
Alright, so I guess we haven't really explained why we've been going around all these villages and stuff. We've been trying to collect these sealed verses, which are really just magic, so we can hopefully try to get a hold of Yona, or who's the one who's causing all the issues around the universe right now with the Black Scrawl and everything. So now we just have to go find him. And as Papa NieR alludes to here, I'm also pretty sure we will find him.
Is the end goal of this to cure the disease that her daughter has?
Our main character, yeah, our character Papa NieR is actually concerned with that. He cares more about his daughter than anything else, so he's doing everything in the name of his daughter, basically.
Correct.
That's what drives him entirely through this story up until this point.
As some events are about to showcase here, or at least would if we weren't skipping cutscenes, curing the disease isn't necessarily the whole battle.
Yeah, this is like one of those games where there's always like what a twist moment.
I mean, there's always
quite
a
a few of them.
Yeah, definitely quite a few of them in this game. I think the general consensus between the two games of NieR and NieR Automata is that Automata has better combat, but regular NieR has like a much more, at least at the minimum, a tear-jerking, twisty story.
Yeah.
And I think that holds up pretty well. So Popola has just asked us to go find some vapor moss. It spawns in the same spot every single time, but after that, we're going to see some tragedies unfold.
Yeah, this game starts, if you've paid a lot of attention to the story and you've been caring a lot about the characters, maybe doing the side quests and stuff, this game really hits you in the feels at this point. And this is the occasion for most people where they'll just like straight up just be like so super attached to this game that it's just it hits most people pretty hard.
So you can see Emil limping from his house to the town, warning us that something's coming here. And as he's recovering here, we can already hear tremors happening, so we should go figure it out.
Pay no mind to the fact that he's blind and somehow he winds up navigating to town alone.
Yeah, he's able to sense like dark magic or shades or something like that. So yeah, the next boss we're about to do here is called Jack of Hearts, and is easily the most volatile boss in the entire run. And until about, I don't know, 4 days ago, it absolutely held that title. But recently I've come up with a newer strat to help mitigate the difficulty of this boss in terms of performing it perfectly in a run. So this is phase 1 of like, I don't know, 5. There's a lot of phases of this fight. I mean, the boss isn't here yet, but we call this a phase. Alright, so phase 1 here is going to start by doing a jump to roll to avoid the shockwave and doing 2 double fists, or one fist twice, and then we use Dark Blast for the remainder of it, so that just in time there, the attack gauge comes up, we don't get hit at all. And then this is where the newer strat comes into play here. I'll be using a magic drop here on Jack of Hearts, and that's not something we were doing before, and it makes this fight much nicer when you use a magic drop. So hopefully I pull this off. This is as serious time as it gets for me. Okay, and this is what I was talking about. Okay, well, I actually don't know what to say right now.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh my god, what?
I don't think I've ever seen that happen before, but okay, thanks, game. We're okay now, though.
Did I beat him? I definitely made the noise like I beat him, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, there's your marathon-esque luck for the day. It had to come somewhere.
Yeah, that was interesting. You literally stuck for a few seconds.
So normally the magic drop, which to remind you all lasts 30 seconds, would be just enough to do that phase and this phase. Which is important, I guess, in comparison to this phase, because this phase is an auto-scroller, unless you're just really bad. So it wouldn't really make sense to use it here, for example. And I'm going to heal here just to be super safe. It'd be really embarrassing to die here.
Yeah, important part to mention at this point. Like, it is on an auto-scroller, but you do have to hit the threshold of damage to him, which is basically no health bar for him.
Yeah, you'll see here in a second. I will have him down to pretty much a sliver of health, and that's when you know you've done as much damage as you can at that time.
Yeah, because if you don't, you will just game over and have to restart the entire section.
Alright, so you notice I attacked there and his HP gauge isn't going down, so now I know I've done as much damage as I need to. And now we can just wait for him. So yeah, I mean, I got stuck, but I'm totally happy with that result.
That was pretty entertaining to watch, not gonna lie.
Yeah, at least y'all got to see whatever that was.
You looked like you were cradled in his, like, little arm.
I mean, I know exactly what happened, but it's not worth explaining.
It looks like you were, like, in a falling animation, but you got stuck in a way where you wouldn't finish falling.
Right, that's what happened. I can't emphasize how hard it is to get in that situation. It's only happened one other time, I believe. On this fight, anyway. Alright, so we just need to attack Jack of Hearts here twice. And now we can go deal with the activity in the library. We knew the shade was going for the library, so now we're seeing why.
Yeah, so Jack of Hearts is no more. And there's some trouble in the library here, so we're gonna help them out.
Just a bunch of shades, but now this is with a really good first example of where you can see Emil's power come into play here. You can see he can petrify his enemies. That you might notice that's why he has a like a cloth over his eyes. He has an attribute, we'll call it, where if he stares at anything, it turns into stone. So now we have the tentacle boss, or I don't even know what you would call it.
It's Jack's head, more or
Jack's
less.
head, thank you. If someone wants to explain the nuances of this fight, I'd appreciate it.
Alming, you want to do that?
Sure, so these hitboxes are actually really, really janky. It takes very, very specific positioning to actually hit them with the dark hand. I mean, is there anything else you want to add?
That's really about it. Like those tentacles, you could just be standing right in front of it, to the side of it. The fist can be going right through the attack gauge, but it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
By the way, we're getting close to a good break here, Railcoon, in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
If that's, or not 30 seconds, more like 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
I was like, did I mess up? No. So yeah, after those cutscenes that we just saw after defeating Jack of Hearts' head, this book here you see to the left named Grimoire Noir, the third book, has taken away all of our sealed verses, i.e. magic. So that's why I'm attacking these enemies here. I can't use my magic until I get my sealed verses back. And if you can remember to the beginning of the run, this is probably one of the best first opportunities to showcase just how important obtaining and keeping a combo is. So you can now see I'm over 50. Hopefully, if this goes right, I'm ending here about 60 or 70, and then I can go right to the boss with my combo intact. Oh god. Okay, go, go, go. Okay, I didn't make it in time. If that attack I had done had actually hit the boss, it would have worked, but as you can see, I'm right back into it with attacks, so not a big deal at all. These books like to come out here and hit you, and really the best way I know to deal with it is do a jump to plunge there, and that makes it so I don't get hit, and then just go ahead and start attacking. So you can see here after every phase I'm regaining the sealed verses. And then after this phase, we'll be using a strength drop here. During the last fight, when all those shades were in the village, there was a chance that a lot of them could have dropped a strength capsule, and that would help here, because obviously 60 seconds is more than 30 seconds. So I'll go ahead and use a strength. I'll wait a little bit. And yeah, to remind you all, a combo, if you notice here, when I'm getting into like the 30s or 40s, it makes you attack faster. Like the animations literally come out faster. So it's an absolute 1-to-1 increase in DPS, damage per second, that is. I'll go and use the strength drop now. And then with these last bits of magic here, we just can do 2 slashes each. Alright, and similar to the Grimoire Room fight, it's going to be the same way of dealing this one. You just break down its barrier. You can also one-cycle this boss, but it's, again, very, very difficult to do.
Yeah, I almost got it there.
Yeah.
Finish this quickly.
Alright. And unfortunately, to keep that tentacle boss sealed away, we have to petrify our friend Kaine here, because she's holding the door, which, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Jack of Hearts cannot be killed, unfortunately.
So that'll be our first break. I'll let this cutscene play out, perhaps, until you switch to ads or commercial break. But yeah, this is Emil taking the rags off his eyes and sealing the boss away, but not forever. As we'll find out here after the break. You can go ahead and pause that timer if you'd like.
All right. So like we mentioned before, we're going to be taking a quick break here. On Hotfix, we've been promoting some healthy behavior, doing wellness breaks. So we're going to take a few minutes to get up, stretch, get some water, etc. I encourage you all to do the same. Just as a quick reminder before we go, just want to thank everybody for tuning in. If there's a game you'd like to see on the spotlight, normally this show has suggestions on games you'd like to see. But we do game anniversaries and special shows like this sometimes. If you'd like to suggest a game to be on the spotlight, you can type !spotlight in chat. And there's a form you can fill out to say that you'd like to see a game shown off here on Mondays. But with that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
I swear.
And we'll have the rest of the run for you after that. Just waiting for the rest of this cutscene to play, just because it's a good moment.
Yep, it's almost done. And there you go.
All right, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Stick with us. Alright, we're clear. All right, everyone, welcome back. We're here with the Community Spotlight, our special NieR Anniversary Edition, where we've got Skate running NieR Gestalt for us. It's been a lot of fun so far. We just took a quick break. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. Just like to remind everyone real quick that Hotfix is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions and bits. So we'd appreciate it if you would consider subscribing. But unless you've got anything you want to go over before we resume the run, I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, I would just say you stop the timer a little late there. Maybe when you see like environment, you can go and start the timer again.
Okay.
And otherwise, yeah, we have a definitely an action-packed second half of the run. An entire new way of moving. A lot of skips in comparison to the first half. It's definitely the tech-oriented part of the run. So I'm really excited for this. This is really the meat and potatoes of the run.
Yeah, it's basically a boss rush towards the last bit of the game.
Yeah. But other than that, I'm ready to go when everyone else is.
Yep.
And like I said, you can go ahead and start the timer when you see environment.
Okay.
Alrighty, I'm not going to save.
I'm so shocked.
This game is pretty lenient with not using saves because it checkpoints you pretty frequently.
Alright, so this takes place 5 years later from the events that you just saw, and the first time you'll be seeing me use Dark Execution, only because it's equipped by default. At least not in the prologue, that is. And hopefully I can get this last guy. Okay. And since I didn't get necessarily good luck on drops earlier, I am going to pick these up, and it already has paid off. I got a strength capsule there. Yeah, so it thinks I'm trying to run away. I just wanted the drop. Okay.
We'll be...
Alright, so now we have access to two-handed weapons and a spear. So I'm going to equip the spear and then just set my magic configuration back to how it was before the 5 years. And right off the bat, it should be pretty interesting that I am no longer using side rolling as my main form of movement. If someone just wants to maybe briefly touch on why that is.
Yeah, so Skate's going to be doing what we call spear dashing. And there's a bit of a cooldown between initiating and another spear dash. You can't just do it right off of another one. So what we do is we buffer in a couple rolls in between, which gives just enough time for him to be able to reset with the spear dash and continue the movement, which is far superior in all the movement we've seen up to this point, which by far beats fast rolling. And it still isn't as fast as board drifting when it's available. So.
And there's some very, very rare situations where I'll actually be integrating side rolls and spear dashing at the same time. It's just there's very few situations that it calls for, because you have to remember, even though we're using a spear, the mechanic of how a side roll hasn't changed, right? Once you're going in a direction and decided you want to do a side roll, you have to start that side roll at a 45-degree angle, or rather a 90-degree angle from where you're currently headed. So you'd have to spear dash and then immediately roll to a 90-degree side. And the amount of times you have to do that in the run is just so scarce. So here's the boar luck I was talking about before. Hopefully I don't get hit. Oh my goodness. So I would say I get that maybe 3 out of 10 times.
Yeah. Generally all the shades are a lot closer to the boar and they run over there really quickly.
Yeah, they also a lot more spawn the further in the game you go. So the first times when you hop on the boar, it's almost guaranteed that you'll be able to ride it, but it's pretty much down to luck now.
Alright, so we're back in the mansion here with Emil, hopefully to figure out a way to unpetrify Kaine, because we do want her to come back. And compared to last time, you will see me moving a little bit different through this tiny section. I'll be using the spear dash, because again, faster than walking. But we'll have access to full movement here once we go into the underground laboratory.
Which is an entirely top-down section for the most part, except for one fight.
Okay, so this is easily not the most inconsistent boss, but the most inconsistent portion of the entire run by far. If somebody maybe wants to explain the mechanics of what's going on here for the next, 6 minutes or so.
Would you like to take that one?
I can cover that. So, in this entire section, we're in a bit of a top-down view here, but we can still rotate the map 360 degrees. And at this point, Skate's going to be trying to navigate Emil through the laboratory or the underground facility, and trying not to get too far ahead of him, or else it will reset the floor that he's on. And there's 3 floors to navigate through. Emil's going to try to stop and attack the enemies by petrifying them, so he's going to do his best to try to have Emil not slow down to do that by dispatching all the enemies as quickly as possible, while still maintaining progression through each of the floors.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Fira quest, where she can't be too far away from you, or you have to start all over again. And we're really at the mercy of how fast Emil wants to travel. Sometimes he'll just walk into a wall. Sometimes he'll run by you like he's your sidekick. Sometimes he'll teleport like he's a magician. It's just, there's nothing really we can do to control any of what he does. And that also includes, as Mash touched upon, actually petrifying my enemies for me, which does save quite a bit of time. And I guess compared to other sections of the run, other than, say, maybe the junk heap, technically, like, just on a code level, you don't have to kill every single enemy that we're doing here, but Emil doesn't ignore them. And since Emil has to come with us, it's pretty much mandatory to kill every enemy in your path here, which works out, at least for drops and experience. And I guess a third thing that we really haven't talked about yet at all, because they're not really relevant in the first half of the run, are words. I don't know if someone wants to describe that. I've already gotten magic 15%, which is very good.
Yeah, sure. So words are the random drops that also come from the same way as tutorials. And the game allows you to equip a bunch of words to your weapons. I believe is it 1 per weapon or something? No, 2 per weapon.
2 per weapon.
Yeah.
And you can get up to, I believe, 30% extra damage, either physical, magic, and I believe there's also a couple of others as well, different kinds of words that you can use. Wow. So in the end part of the game, equipping them can save a lot of time. Really boosts your damage.
I got attack power 15 and magic power 15, which is quite literally as good as it gets at this point in the game. So I'm super stoked to see that. And we'll be equipping those before the next boss coming up. In fact, it actually is... you know what? I'm calling an audible.
Uh-oh. Think it's faster to do it now?
Well, if he has strong enough rune words, it definitely makes sense.
Right, so if the best thing we can hope for is magic 15 and attack 15, then we're literally waiting on no more drops, so we might as well get paid off for the extra stats now that I know I have them, you know?
Yeah, makes sense.
The less time you're in that, constantly upgrading your magic, your words, the more time you end up saving overall.
Right.
I think in most runs, people will do 2 at
That's
the
right.
So...
And you have to do one there because it's too strong to not do it, and then you need to do one when we do a weapon later because obviously you need to deck out your best weapon.
Yeah, so you can apply the words to a weapon, all of your magic spells, but mainly we just do the 3 that we use, and then also to your evasive capabilities as well, because it binds with the character and increases their stats that way, so even if you're not using the skill, you still get the properties of it. So, good way to boost all of your damage as much as possible.
So have we touched on the, I guess, the enemies with the red orbs around them?
Not directly, no. You can feel free to explain that. Now's a better time than ever.
Sure, so there's a bunch of enemies in the game that the game... I suppose they're intending to have them be immune to magic damage, but it just so happens that if you knock them over, that shield will go away. And you can also use Dark Hand to knock them over. So you don't really need to use physical attacks at all. Sometimes it's more convenient to use physical attacks, but oftentimes you'll just use Dark Hand to knock them over. Or, conveniently, Emil can just petrify them instead.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I guess, kind of a big reason why they're down here. Technically, Emil's powers are considered magic. So he can't destroy any of the enemies with magic barriers until you bust them down. And unfortunately, the only way you can really reliably kill the enemies with the magic barrier, if you use magic, is you have to have 2 Dark Fists land back to back. Otherwise, they'll recover too fast. And you won't be able to actually do damage. You really have to do 1 fist for the knockdown and 1 for the kill.
I did notice, though, you did manage to kill an enemy with a red shield with 1 dark hand, because the hitbox stays for a few seconds on the smaller enemies, and I can actually flat out kill them.
Alright, so a little bit of traffic here in the underground lavatory, so I'm just trying to get out of here. Alright, so I'm a little concerned right now. Emil's too far away. I'm hoping, and I'm about to die. And I just used a strength drop on accident. Okay. Okay, we didn't reset the room, that's fine. So yeah, I panicked and used a strength drop there because I was about to die.
Yeah, but, resetting Emil is very scary. Not only can you lose a ton of time, you can also cause a glitch where all of the text in the game just completely disappears.
I'm not even lying in the sense of that if I had messed that up, it is the biggest time loss in the entire run. That exact instance.
Resetting a meal on any of war just eats so much time.
Yeah. So we're killing these 2 sets of shades here, and as soon as we pick up this key card, a bunch of them spawn, so I'm going to try to hit them through the wall. Someone had mentioned before that the hitbox is big enough to go through the wall. So that helps out there. And then otherwise we just try to get them while they're funneling in here, but I had gotten hit. So just having to do what I can here.
It seems like the hitbox on your dark hand when they're very close to you can be a little bit wonky.
Yeah, it's kind of the hitbox is kind of starts from the knuckles of the fist, if that makes sense. So like anything between the knuckles and the wrist of the dark fist pretty much just don't hit. So when the enemies are real close to you like that, it can definitely cause an issue.
Does that mean there's some randomness on the enemies that are close, since it seems like the hand will sometimes come from the left or the right?
I mean, best practice would be to position yourself so that you know the hitbox is good. So, I mean, you could consider it luck if you happen to be in that situation, but I would consider it more of precise setup.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that the dark hand actually comes out is it's like similar to like a boxing match. This is the way I look at it. Like you throw a left and then a right. If they're in the timing sense, they're fired off one next to another. So that's why you see them come from left or right usually, and that's what kind of makes the hitbox a little wonky.
Alright, so now that all the enemies are defeated in there, we can grab our last key card to get out of here. Or rather, key card / document. I guess that's what we've been really going through this laboratory for, is to kind of figure out, like, exactly why Emil can petrify enemies and how we can maybe unpetrify Kaine.
Yeah, and it all alludes to a project that they call Snow White, which is another reference to fairy tale, which is... Fun fact, this game actually was redesigned from an original concept around fairy tale battles and stuff like that, so...
Alright, here we go. So first I'm going to equip Beast Bane for the magic boost you get from it, then I'm going to use a magic drop, so I do a lot of magic damage. And then just go to town here on this boss. This boss's name is Halua, aka number 5. And you can already see, number 6. And you can already see the bullet shmup patterns this guy is using. I'll try to get a hit or 2 before he jumps on the ceiling. I got both, that's really good. And then we just Dark Blast him while he's on the wall here. Jump so we don't get hit by the shockwave. He should go into his attack gauge here, and then we just wait for 2 Dark Fists. And now comes the legended time where if you've played NieR Automata, and you've seen Emil so far, but you haven't really recognized him, maybe you do now. I'll avoid spoilers as much as I can, but yeah, pretty much as a result of defeating that boss, Emil now takes the form of said boss. And as you can see, Tentacle Monster round 2 because we've freed Kaine from petrification. And once again, always one of these tentacles gives me an issue.
Yeah, we're significantly stronger from the 5-year time jump as well.
Right.
So now that's the reason why we can actually finally slay Jack first.
Right. All right.
It is amusing to me that it's like you're significantly stronger. You've learned different weapon techniques, and then you just use the same spell to beat him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've practiced. So yeah, I was at least considering trying to take the break here since the game has a mandatory like minute or so break here, but since it's 2/3 of the way through the run, I tried to make it a little bit earlier. So I guess this would be a good time to maybe go over some maybe like some history of the speedrun if either of the two of you have something for that.
Yeah, so originally the first person that was working on this game was OmniGamer, who presented this run at a GDQ in 2013. And they were working on this game with Akion, who's a glitch finder and sort of like speed tech connoisseur. They were routing at this game and figuring out new skips and tricks and stuff like that. And that's kind of where this route originally started, is with the work that they had put into this game back in 2013. And I think even a little bit before that. But his original run back then was 308. And since then it's been dropped down on the 2019 in September by Fernie, and then improved towards 2020 with a 306. And then more recently, Skate here the other day started doing runs of this back even before 2018, I believe.
Middle of 2018, yeah.
Yeah, and recently got world record as of yesterday. 2020 this year, Rio 1, which is a big, massive improvement.
Yeah, I got the record yesterday. Just was getting ready for this event. And I don't know. I was expecting to get a PB of sorts, but I definitely wasn't expecting to get a run like that. Especially for years now, people have claimed things that like sub 3 isn't possible, and the fact that I got a time so close to it feels really good, especially coming into today.
Yeah, big congratulations on that. Getting a hefty PB like that is always really satisfying.
Yeah, thank you so much. Been running this for more or less 5 months straight, and definitely feels good for the fruits of my labor to pay off.
Yeah, this game is very heavy on execution, even more so than RNG. Even though we tend to look at the RNG side of the run as what tends to screw you over, it's very heavy on execution as well. So.
All right, so this is another thing I've kind of introduced to the run. You saw me get on top of the bridge in the village earlier. But now that we have a spear, we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. We now have access to fast travel, which is over here. So we use the same pathing to get over here, except I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Alright, very good. So yeah, you can do a spear dash into a double jump, and just be able to get right up there. And then I do a little bit of movement tech after that, just to line up my position to talk to the soldier who allows us to take the boat.
Fast travel, yay!
Alright, so now we're headed to the Lost Shrine. This was like the first dungeon-esque place that we went to in the run, but due to a cutscene that we skipped, you didn't get to see it all collapse. So until now in the game, we haven't really had a good way to get back into the Lost Shrine, but now that we have a reason to, Popola's decided to mention that, oh yeah, you can fast travel anywhere if you want. So now we can get to this back entrance to the Lost Shrine, and do Lost Shrine again.
Do you like ladders, chat? Lots of ladders right here.
Oh yeah.
Very tall ladders.
Do you like RNG, chat? Lots of RNG too.
Yeah, there's some enemies here. You can explain that on me.
Yeah, so there's a floating enemy. It's just chilling over there, and if Skate's really unlucky, that enemy can cause him a lot of troubles. It can knock him off the ladder. There's also more enemies at the top of this, but again, can knock him all the way down to the bottom. So
yeah, luckily they only show up in the last time we have to come here, so it's not too much of a worry the first time. It's definitely nice to see this area empty the first time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say this is probably like the second serious time part of the run. I'm about to do a series of 2 skips here, and they're quite complicated. The first one here, I'm going to rely on an enemy flinging me up in the air. And then the second one, I'll be utilizing a spear dash glitch. So the first thing I do here is I set both my allies Kaine and Emil to guard, so that they're not attacking these enemies that I want to come hit me. Come here. There you go. So hopefully these enemies start running over here eventually. And then I'm going to have to hope that it uses one of 4 attacks that it can use to swing me in the air. And then I'll be doing a movement glitch out of that to get to where I need to go, and then I'll be doing it again with the spear. Here we go. I don't think this is going to work. Oh, yeah, it was so close. And then you got to get back up here pretty quick if you mess it up, because otherwise they start running down. And I don't know how I just did that, so I don't know what to say about that.
Did you just roll over the railing?
Yeah, that's right.
Going back to that 1 in 4 thing, wasn't it about 5 minutes before we started this run that you found out that it is in fact 2 out of 4?
Alright, we got the first one.
Ooh.
Nice.
And we got the second one. Okay, sorry, I wanted to make sure I got that. Okay, I'll try my best to explain how all of that works. So,
I actually have the write-up on screen for it.
Sure, I mean, if you'd like to, go ahead.
Yeah. So, after he climbed that staircase, he wants, like you said, put the enemies, or his allies on guard, so that it lets the enemies just focus on him. What he's going to do is he's going to chain together at the height of the knock-up. He's going to try to, I believe you jump first or roll first?
You jump.
Yeah. So jump into the roll and then follow it up with the switch weapon to the Beastbane, which allows him to keep that momentum going, which allows him to reach that little ledge there that he was up on. And then obviously we saw the earlier part of the additional setup for skipping over. And that avoids a majority of these block puzzles that we now witnessed.
So this is what we call a lag room, and I don't really have to explain it, so that's nice.
Oh yeah, that's very obvious why you call it lag room. Oh boy.
Yep. There's just it's because there's so much particle effects going on from him throwing the dark hand to kill things quickly that all of the blood splatters and the knock-up effects and all that stuff just goes off all at once. So it just causes the room to have a little moment to itself.
And then, yeah, I guess with those skips, the real thing we're abusing here is normally when you do a special with a weapon, which would be like, you know, the plunge with a one-handed sword or a spear dash with a spear. Once you do a special, generally you're not allowed to jump again. But if you do a special with a weapon and then switch to a different weapon, you can still do that second jump that you're normally allotted. And that's what makes all that possible.
I'm going to talk to the villagers.
And we're doing another little skip here similar to the quick travel skip, where you just do a spear dash to double jump.
I'm used to it.
And that, once again, allows us to skip that box puzzle that I mentioned earlier. And it looks like in the past, I don't know, 2 minutes or so, I've gotten both a strength capsule drop and a magic drop, which is going to be really helpful here, because now I'm pretty much set on drops for the remainder of the run. And when I say drops, I mean like the literal word drop, not like things that enemies drop. So that's good at least.
No, that's enough. I got a fucking image to maintain.
So that area you used to skip those block puzzles, that's where you picked up the magic drop earlier in the run, right?
That's right. So instead of going all the way up to get the magic drops and stuff, I just fell down. Alright, so this is another boss that can have some random elements to it if someone wants to explain that.
What's going on? There's dozens
On
of
me?
them.
You can take that one.
Okay. So
You have the list.
he's gonna open up with his dark hands there, and he's gonna burst down the boss as much as possible. This boss is actually the return to Hansel. Gretel's been defeated from the previous fight. But basically, he's going to burst down the boss, lead the... Actually, I don't even know what I'll say. He's just bursting on the boss at this point. With dark
Yeah,
hands.
pretty much what happens in this phase I'm at right now is uncontrollably the boss can just start spinning around.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing you can do about it. But luckily I got the good luck here. Phase 3 is coming up here. I'm going to do one Dark Fist and attack specifically for a reason, because after this we have to fight another boss, and I'm going to immediately Dark Lance. let her sit there, wait about 2 seconds, and then hopefully Emil attacks, and then we just do 2 Dark Fists there for a quick kill. And that's, if you do that boss fight normally, it probably takes 2 minutes. Not even lying.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a new improvement, actually.
Yeah, pretty new. So the fact that we can take that boss fight from 2 minutes to 8 seconds is pretty freaking remarkable. So I'll equip my spear back here. I equipped Beastbane again for the magic boost. You do need a magic boost in that first phase of the fight to make it be optimal.
Yeah, so both boss fights that happened in quick succession was the last half of the boss fight between Hansel and Gretel, and then a boss fight with Tyron, which is an enemy, well, a boss or a character that we don't really hear or talk about yet in the game because story reasons.
Yeah, I guess it hasn't really been mentioned at all yet, but this game nets you different endings depending on how many times you play it and what conditions and such. And the more times you play the game, the more context you get with everything that's going on, and it definitely gets a little feelsy, to say the least.
All I can say is this game's entirely on a matter of perspective. Much
Right.
like Automata, and much like any of the Drakengard games.
That's right. Okay, so generally when I'm doing, PB, world record, whatever you want to call it, attempts, this is absolutely the most important part of the entire run. And it's pretty much for the same reasons as it was the last time we bought a weapon and came to the junk heap, which is I just need to have good drops here or the run's over. Like, it's plain and simple as that. The weapon that we can buy is so much more powerful than anything else we could buy that if you're doing a record attempt, or mainly a PB attempt, even a PB attempt, and you don't get enough money, your run is just over. No questions asked. And the way we get our money here, and this time anyway, the last time we were just killing enemies and hoping they had good drops, and we will be relying on that still a little bit. But in an area we're about to go to in the junk heap here, as the brothers need a little bit more materials here, there's 40 boxes in a room that we're going to go through. And every single box from those boxes of 40 boxes have either a 1% chance to drop a Damascus steel, a 3% chance to drop a fluorite, or a 5% chance to drop an amber. And those sell for 6.2k, 6,000, and 2,000 respective. And if you don't get good enough drops, you lose. Isn't that great? So hopefully we have good luck here.
Yeah, Skate commonly refers to this game at those sections as the gambler's game.
It's a gambler's speedrun.
So it's definitely one of those sections in the run where, especially like you mentioned, if you're on PB or world record, you definitely don't want to be short money and find out the hard way.
Yep, you kind of just have to go through it and hope you get enough, unfortunately.
Just to jump in on that, and really reiterate how powerful that new spear that we're going to get is. It's actually around 2.5 times as strong as the one that we're using at the moment.
Right.
It's literally the strongest weapon in the game, too, even before upgrades.
I believe it's the strongest weapon in the game unupgraded.
Yeah,
Yes.
before upgrades.
Yes.
I think some of the two-hands scale much better with upgrades in comparison.
Okay, so we're going to blow up this wooden barrier here, and the luck begins. Here we go.
I'm actually quite surprised that bomb worked around the corner.
Chat, have any predictions on how many drops I'm going to get here? Average is like 2.5. We're looking for these yellow rare drops out of these boxes.
I'm going for the high roll. 4.
4.
4 yellows. Oh, gambler.
I'm gonna go with 3.
I feel like we're going at least 3.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's not a good start.
Yeah.
It's trying to trick you. It'll be fine, I believe.
Oh, we still have plenty of boxes to go, but it's not a good start. And And that would be dead world record in a run.
Was it 0?
0 drops.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Your
Unfortunately,
run just instantly dies, and there's nothing you can do about it.
so that's point 2 of the game where it just kills your run. I used to do a thing at this point on where I would actually alt the route and do the complete opposite half that you'd save for last, just to make sure I had money before the game happened.
Yeah.
And
And
it's not any good. It's not any good. You might as well just reset.
Yep, it's really that bad, especially when you've done it before with it. I'd mentioned very early in the run that we'd be using Dark Execution on purpose in one spot, and this is the one spot in the run where we use it on for these flying robots. You could use Dark Blasts to, just shoot them out of the air, but it doesn't do as much damage, unfortunately. It's real close.
I think some people still use the charged shots from the Dark Blast.
Yeah.
Hold on. So, but there's the Dark Execution works pretty well.
Alright, so we got the mandatory memory alloy drop that we're guaranteed to get. Trying to get this item here, even though it doesn't matter, because I'm going to be loading a save.
Yay, titanium alloy.
Yeah, that's the common drop, unfortunately. Alright, so just like before, blowing up these 2 columns so we can get the bombs. Other than that very first instance today, the bomb spawns have been pretty generous, I would say. The bomb and column spawns. Alright, so the boy was looking for a memory alloy, and that robot is guaranteed to drop one, so we're just going to go back and give it to him now. Okay.
It's been a while since we mentioned it, but some new people in chat. We're doing this because it's the 10-year anniversary of this game being released in North America. It was released a few days earlier in other regions, but today's release for North America lined up for the Monday show, so we're celebrating it today. Just having fun with Skate doing a run for us today.
Yep.
The earliest release was Replicant, which is the Japanese version of this game, which is, like I said, a different localization of the game. But there's not anything to worry about the differences between the two. It's just the Japanese version released a little earlier over there on the 22nd rather than the 27th, as it did for everybody else. But that's pretty common nowadays.
Yeah.
Alright, so we go give the memory alloy to the brother, and he says he's going to need some time to craft it into a nice weapon for us, which we're not going to use. So until then, we're going to go see what everyone else in the universe needs our help with. So first we need to fast travel to the village. So to do that, I'm actually just going to jump over the bridge, fall into the water, and then we end up right here at the fast travel boat.
That drowning animation is still goofy. It shouldn't
Yeah.
make me laugh, but it does.
It's just so obnoxious that these folks can't swim. So here, another spear tech, so I'm going to jump. There we go. And earlier in the run, you'd seen me fall in the water. If we happen to have a spear at that point in the run, we would probably do that. But since we don't have a spear until now, that's the first time we can actually hop over the moat.
There's a reason you drown in this game, but it's too much to go into detail about. Tied to like the 90% of lore that isn't inside this game.
It sounds about typical for these types of games.
Yeah, this game has a lot of playwrights, stories, and comics and mangas, all sorts of supplemental material that Yoko Taro has written for this series of games.
Yeah.
That goes for all of them, every single one.
It really expands to both the outside lore as well as the games, in that they mix up every single type of medium and genre they can into the whole NieR story.
So we'll be doing a fast travel, quick fast travel again. Got it. But yeah, similar to the first half of the game where we're having to go around collecting the sealed verses, i.e. magic. Now, since certain events happened halfway through the run, we're now trying to get pieces of a key so we can get into a castle.
Which is conveniently hidden in the Lost Shrine.
Yep.
Don't ask how that works.
Long ago, people operated
Just does.
stands where they impaled the creatures unskewered and fried them.
So I'm going to do something here. What I'm going to do is, before I load my save, since I didn't get good enough drops, I'm going to go to the shop and show you all just how bad it is. Like, so you all know, oh, he's only a couple thousand short. He just wants the nice weapon. I can assure you it doesn't work like that. So yeah, I'll show you just how bad these drops were. And then I'll load my save.
Yeah, it's a very drastic difference between good drops and bad drops.
And you can also see this elaborate machine we got from earlier in the run sells for 1,000 instead of like 300 or 600. So all of these things come into play throughout the run. But as you can see, I have 12,000 G, and the Phoenix Spear costs 32,400 G. You could say I'm a little short.
That's
But this is what we make backup saves for.
it's impressive that you got 0. We'll just say
Yeah.
that.
It's 15k is average, so like 2.5 drops. So it's like it's closer to what you'd expect maybe than not. So anyway, before like we did before Halua, we're going to equip words to our new weapon, so it gets all the boosts that everything else got. And then I also usually take this opportunity to double check my magic words and just make sure that they're good, because sometimes you can maybe get better ones, but I didn't. Oh, wait a minute. I'm on the different save, right. So this save had really bad magic words, so I pretty much have no magic words right now.
The only good thing that I saw there was the 20% reduction on cost.
Right, which, I mean, that surprisingly does make a big difference, because it allows you to do like one more hit of magic or one more thing of magic, and that can sometimes be the difference of, like one cycling a boss or not,
Yeah.
Getting that extra dark hand does add up.
Yeah.
So I saw a question in chat. So is the world record a kind of gamble? In a way, yeah. If you don't get the money you need, the run dies.
As of yesterday, anyway, like before yesterday, I had to run 40 seconds behind the previous world record, and it had some of the worst luck I've ever seen. So like, you can even get some of the worst luck and still have, like a sub 310, a super respectable time. But once you get from like 306 down, it really becomes a lot about that. Not all about that, but just those extra time saves you get with the luck just mean that much more. But until you have like a sub 310 or something, yeah, luck doesn't really matter too much.
There's some backup strats that we use for safety sometimes in the middle of a run for getting a few quests done or going out of our way to grab some items that sell for quite a bit.
Yep.
One of the quests that he could have grabbed a little earlier when he was at the Seafront was a quest to collect some boxes up and trade them in for guaranteed 10k, which is a big help. And then there's a few other locations you can go for some potentially rare drops that would sell for more as well.
All right, so we got part 1 of 2 here for bosses. This is going to be the first part of the rock fight. There's pretty much a wedding going on, and all of a sudden these wolves show up to crash the wedding, so to speak. And it just so happens during the wedding, someone spilled a bunch of wine on the ground. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Someone should clean that up soon.
So even there, this just showcases even more that I just told the game that I want to go to Forest of the Myth next. But instead, I'm just going to come up here anyway. And it doesn't matter.
Is that another instance of just, it's the first option?
Well, yes. It's the first option, so obviously it's the quickest to pick. What actually happens, though, like if I told it I want to go to Forest of the Myth, is it puts my marker on the map to Forest of the Myth. but the option to complete any of the things that it asks you to do are still there. So that's why it doesn't matter, and we pick the first option.
Generally, it would make you run back here later to do this bit if you did it the other way.
Right. Okay, so Rock 2, to begin, I'm going to do a spear dash roll and then jump so I can do just a little bit of damage before this fight even really gets started. Then, the mechanic of this fight is that these wolves that are about to spawn in here and attack us follow the king of Facade, which is this guy who I'm pushing into a corner right now. So the idea is that, you know, once you start the fight, you push them into a corner so that they all go into this corner and you can have them trapped, similar to the Moonrise fight earlier where they're all trapped in that corner and I was just able to wall up on them. So for these regular wolves here, we just do a combination of Dark Fist and Spear dashes. It's really just DPS killing as many as possible. Wow, they're all on the line there.
I feel like the game has been giving you an odd mix of very good and very bad luck this entire run.
As is the nature of the run.
Yeah, you could have really good starts and really bad ends, or really bad starts and really good finishes.
As people have seen for the past week or so, it doesn't matter if you're 2 minutes ahead of record, 4 minutes ahead of record, 6 minutes ahead of record. If you don't have enough money for the Phoenix Spear, none of it matters.
Yeah.
Everything in the luck, all the luck beforehand in the run is trivial in comparison. Alright, so now for the Rock 2 phase, we're just going to use a strength drop, just like we did on Rock 1, and just try to really get it taken care of. On this phase, I can do a jump and then spear dash right into him. He otherwise does quite a bit of damage to you if you mess that up. Yeah, and you can even see I'm very close to dying. It's probably the last fight in the run where you really notice how under-leveled you are. Alright, so we got him in a corner to finish. And we finished the fight before the strength drop expired, which means we did it in under 30 seconds, and that's pretty reasonable. So that's key number 2.
Oh,
Alright. So now the game's going to give us an option of what we want to do again. I'm going to tell it we're going to head to the Forest of the Myth, but instead not do that, and we're going to head back to the junk heap. I have a feeling that weapon he was going to get ready for us is done.
Yeah, I wonder how they're going to let us know.
So, just like earlier, this is the other time in the run where we can do a spear jump over the moat. Very good. So, now we're going to go check our mail. Mail usually comes around this time. And it seems like we have a letter that our weapon's ready. So, we're going to go off to the junk heap. And I guess just to pull the curtain behind all of this, I had mentioned earlier that the game does a really good job of preventing you from doing things out of order. But at the same time, the second half of the run can be done in any order you want. So it's just kind of a weird contrast for how it runs the first time.
Yeah.
Or the first half, rather.
It lets you pick the order you do them in, which is very good, nice, actually, because it allows us to do a bit of free routing, but we found the optimal way, and that's the way we're doing it.
Yeah, and it really all comes down to getting the Phoenix slants as fast as possible. And the route we do allows for that.
So I assume there's a reason for coming back here other than the weapon.
Yes.
Given that the Phoenix Lance is just greatly superior.
Yeah, so as Skate mentioned, we're collecting these keys. They're aptly named, if I can remember off the top of my head, Law Robotics, which is the one we're currently going to get. He has another one already, which is, I forget the one for Rock off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the keys.
The stone,
One's Loyal Cerberus, that's what you get when you beat Gretel.
That's from Rock. Stone Guardian is the one from Hansel and Gretel, which he already has. And then after that, he'll be getting another one called Sacrifice eventually, and the other one from that is Forest of Myth, which is, I believe, something along the lines. They're all aptly named after what they represent, but
right.
It's hard to remember all of them off the top of my head.
So yeah, once we come here to get our new weapon that the brother has agreed to make for us for helping him out, he tells us that he wants us to get some revenge on some shades in the junk heap. So NieR, at this point in the game, bloodthirsty, he has no problem deciding to do this.
You mean Papa?
Yes, Papa. Papa NieR, even.
Yeah, conveniently, the weapon he gives us is not any better than the Phoenix Spear.
Right.
If it was better than the Phoenix Spear, then you wouldn't have to worry about all the randomness, right?
Yeah, that would...
Yeah.
Both of the weapons that we have to buy in the game, if we didn't have to buy them, I mean, the run would be much less luck dependent. But it's just inevitable, or rather unarguable, that they save time, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of times where it's like, I'm so worried about getting Phoenix Spear that I'll opt to not pick up the first weapon we normally would buy, because I'm so worried about my drops that early in the run.
Yeah.
But it's not worth eating the time. So you might as well just reset and try again if you're going for a PB or a world record run.
So we're in another minecart sequence, and compared to the first time we were in a minecart sequence, we literally just shred through these enemies with just the held Dark Blast. I'm not even spamming RB in this case. This isn't like the powerful shots like this. This is just me holding down right bumper and killing everything. So a little bit less stressful than the first part by a lot.
Yeah, conveniently homing shots do quite a bit more damage as well, which is really nice. So every once in a while he might, he did a little earlier, but he was letting go of a few to get rid of like massive amounts of enemies. I think the worst thing they could do at this point is they could potentially knock them off the minecart.
Yes, the electric moves that the flying robots use, they can definitely knock you off the cart. And you have to start all the way back at the beginning, so it's just pure time loss if that happens, unfortunately.
Very rare, but it can
Yes, yes.
I assume it just means that if they start getting close, you aim your little pea shooter at them, make sure they can't do that.
That's right. Alright, so last time we were in this room, what's going to happen now is kind of in reverse. So last time we fought some enemies and then fought this thing. But this time we're going to fight this thing and then find some enemies. So as you can see, compared to before, that's just 3 Dark Fists to the Spear Dashes, and as opposed to like 10. Just to kind of really show how much stronger this weapon is, albeit we have gained maybe a couple levels since, but not that much. Not enough to be doing that much more damage.
Yeah, levels are not super significant, other than the fact they increase your health gauge and MP bar a little bit.
Yeah, they're almost negligible levels, almost.
There's a point in the game where if you're doing other categories that having a level like around 30 or more, it does make it matter, like a difference, but this early in the run, it really just comes down to having that spear.
So this is a little bit of a newer strat compared to into the past, just like you saw me do before. Last time I fought these flying robots, I was using Dark Execution to beat them. But in this case, again, we're so much more powerful that just using even just regular Dark Blast is faster than trying to aim Dark Execution, those little spears that come out of the ground. So that's a little bit faster and a little bit easier even, instead of trying to aim. So we're on our way to the next boss, P33. So here's one of the few instances in the run that I found where you can reliably try to chain spear dashes and quick rolls. So if you notice, I'm trying to tweak myself so that when I come out of the spear dash, I'm quick rolling against the side of the railing. And again, it's just one of the few instances in the run where you can actually pull that off and have it be faster than just spear dashing normally. Just yet another example of the optimizations that come into getting a top time now.
Would any instance where there was like a hard 90-degree turn also work for that, where you just spear dash then side roll?
That's right. That's the other instance, and I've pretty much have foregone any instance you can do that. And there will definitely be one or two later, but you have to really be like consciously thinking about it. Spacing and stuff's really important.
Yeah, because of the cooldown on the spear dash, you want to make sure it lines up with the turn if you're going for that, right?
Yep. So now with how it's routed, you saw me use a magic drop on Jack of Hearts earlier. This is the boss that we used to use said magic drop on. But instead, there's so many more opportunities for drops after Jack of Hearts that you can just use whatever drops you have left over on P33 here. And even if you were to have no drops on this fight, you lose maybe a maximum of 10 seconds. So it's really nice that it doesn't matter too much. And I messed this up. Dang, I messed it up.
Oh, you didn't get the one cycle?
Yeah, I don't mess this fight up very often. So, yeah, this loses more time than any drop would save.
This is a little bit more than 10 seconds.
Yeah, if you miss the damage threshold for this, he has to come back down and then immediately fly back up. Which normally you want to do in one take, but it happens.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's got to go back up now. And then come down and explode.
Yeah. No big deal, though.
Yeah. So it's mandatory that he does that move at the end, but he cycles between that and a few other attack phases. But we skip all of those other ones and just make him do this.
And yeah, I guess if you can't tell before, it's not there anymore. A Shade is controlling this robot. Or at least they're working together. So it's like a weird instance in the game where like a Shade and a robot live and work together. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, the Shade is called Khalil, and the robot is aptly nicknamed by the Shade as BB. But as Skate mentioned, the robot's actual name is P33, because that's the model.
Yep. The little smaller one that we fought earlier is appropriately named P32.
Yep. Fun fact, we may or may not see this robot again in a later game somehow.
We
Yeah,
may
no way.
also see
No
a
way.
very similar looking area as well.
Yep.
All right, so this will be part 2 of our text adventure portion of the game coming
boy.
up here.
My favorite.
And unlike the first part, this part is not consistent, so you actually have to pay attention to the story and answer some questions at the end. But I have it pretty rehearsed at this point, so that you could probably just think I was mashing the whole time. And
Yeah.
text met goes pretty quick in this game.
So normally, he would set his character name to 1, and then you would know exactly where in the lines of text to pay attention to certain things. But since we added 3 extra characters, this will be slightly shifted, but not by much.
Right.
So it's not like he's gonna have to like completely scan the lines.
Well, we're back to 1 because of the safety save, though.
I am back to 1.
That's
no.
true. I completely forgot about that.
I definitely did.
This is the village.
So
I'm glad you said something. I would have been typing Papa at the end.
That's a good thing to bring up now.
Yeah.
That's very important actually for the.
All right, so here we go. So I know that the words appear on page 7 and 13, so I'm just going to make sure I take it slow here so I don't mess up. All right, so you can see deep green eyes there. And 33 companions. So those are the 2 things we're looking for. And normally I could just not completely mash through that, but pretty quickly mash through that.
Yeah.
What did I say? Green, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Green 33?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awkward, right? When you know what it is and forget 2 seconds later.
That happens.
It's
to
no
me
good.
a lot.
And unlike the first time we came to this part in the run, if you mess that up, you have to start all of it over again, and the answers change.
Yeah,
So,
there's 3 possible answers for each one of those first 2 questions, and they present you all the options, and those are all references to lore that's not in this game directly, but more so the Drakengard games. So, fun fact about that.
And yeah, I guess a caveat for running this game, if you run NieR Replicant, is since everything's in Japanese, unless you speak Japanese, you kind of have to learn how to read that story, which I have. It's not a big deal. It's just, you know, just another hurdle you have to overcome if you wanted to learn, say, Replicant over this version.
Yeah. You have to learn the kanta or wherever it is that they
Katakana
call a
or-
short. Yeah, it's a shorthand anyways,
Yeah.
that you have to learn.
I know a decent number of people do Japanese JRPGs, and a lot of times it's just you learn specific symbols to look for if you don't know how to read it at all.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
And because the game does a good job of presenting the answers to you for that section, you could just memorize those characters, so you don't actually have to learn how to read.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
So here's a good opportunity to do a spear dash to side roll. There you go.
But yeah, the only real problem with learning Replicant over this version is that Replicant you would actually learn what the menu is. That's about the only thing.
Is the menu different, or would you just have to like memorize all the menuing?
You have to memorize the like when you're doing like using items or like equipping rune words, you would have to know specifically which ones are which.
Yeah, you'd have to learn what each word is. And
Yeah.
Not only that, but in traditional Japanese Sony fashion, the controls are switched, which I have a lot of experience playing Japanese Sony games, so it's not a big deal. But where it comes into play is when I do spear jumps. All you have to do normally is just select the weapon and mash. But in Replicant, select in the item menu is circle instead of A, but jump is A or X. So you have to like hit circle and then mash A, and for a precise trick as it is, it's a little bit more difficult. But in English releases, when select and jump are on the same button, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
All right, so we're on our way to go get the last key we need, and it's in the only place we haven't revisited so far in the second half, which is the Eyrie. And I would say in terms of the dungeons in the second half, it is by far the most technical. I'm going to be doing some stuff you haven't seen here yet. And it's very risky stuff, like stuff that you lose much, or a significant portion of time on if you miss it. But for the showcase today, I'm going all out.
Might as well go for it.
Absolutely.
Especially since we've already had to load the safety save.
Yeah, for two of them.
We'll protect you.
Yeah, this game is pretty rough.
It's brutal in terms of a grind.
Well, you know,
Okay.
It's comfy as a speedrun, but it's very brutal when you're grinding for a really, really solid time.
and of course, if you want to see the good luck, I mean, Skate just got the world record. You can probably find it on his channel.
Just yesterday.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to start off here doing the same thing we did the first time we came to the area, which is talking to the village chief at the top, but we're going to do something a little bit different. If you remember from before, after talking to the village chief, we did that tech to jump all the way back to the beginning, but this time we need to progress further in the area. So what I'm going to do here is cut over this corner and then talk to the village chief. And by skipping over that corner, I haven't reset my checkpoint. So the last spot it is in all the way on the other side, which is where I want to be. So that saves probably 10 or 15 seconds. Then I'm going to do a very complicated spear jump here. Got it. Very good. So that saves like 4 seconds if you get it and loses like 12 if you don't.
Oh my god.
And you have to do it twice. So this is the last shop of the run. Just going to sell some stuff. You generally, the best thing to have here would be like 10k. So you could afford 10 of each drop, which I'm easily able to afford here. So just a couple medicinal herbs on top. So then there's a little fight here. To progress this fight, you have to kill 3 enemies. So I go for this enemy here, who looks like a guard right now, because you can knock him off the edge. And then I'll be going for 2 other similar looking guards because they're one-shots. So hopefully I knock this guy off. I did. So now we'll go for the guard that spawns here. And then the guard that spawns here. And we're good. So now Kaine shows up to the fight.
Yeah, as soon as you start hearing the dialogue go off at that bit with her, then you're safe to leave that fight area.
Yeah. So the cutscene will start here. And then since I have 10 strength and magic drops, which is more or less plenty of excess, I'm going to elect to use a magic and strength drop here. Most people don't do that, and I don't think you should do it if you have like low drops or something. But if you have all the money in the world and got all the drops, this is probably the next best place to use drops that you normally would just have gone to waste.
Yeah, it cuts your dark hands in half that you would need for this section.
Yeah. And as you can see here, this is probably, I think, the biggest way to showcase just how deadly the Phoenix Lance is here. We're just like shredding through these enemies. Like, I can't emphasize how slow this would be without the right weapon.
And you're still under-leveled, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, generally under-leveled. So unfortunately, one enemy fell to the bottom here, which means that we can't do the spear jump because we're already down here to do the ladder like you would normally do. So I'll take getting 1 out of 1 spear jumps. Alright, next phase. There's going to be 3 enemies accompanying this boss, so the idea here is to knock the enemies off the map and then set up our drops to face the big boss. And generally I wait to use my drops. You would think, oh, maybe it'd be better to use your drops as soon as you get here to help with the enemies, but this boss has a really easy tendency to knock you off the map, and if you get knocked off the map, all your drops are null and void. So I generally just, to play it safer, wait until I beat the boss like that. Until I'm ready to face the boss. Alright, this is the main boss of the section here. This is Wendy.
Yeah, Wendy's a very inspirational bullet hell boss.
So I'm just going to do a charge shot here for swag. So this is a really good boss to showcase shmup patterns, like bullet hell patterns. So I'm going to do enough damage here so I don't have to do anymore. And then I'm just going to draw back here, and you can kind of see how they're like organized, like almost like a bullet hell shmup is. And it's just yet another example of how many inspirations this game takes from other games in the genre, or even other genres themselves. I just think that's so unique in an RPG like this. So I just need to wait here for Emil, or rather Grimoire Vice, to stop talking. I'm going to heal since I'm a little low on health. And then use a magic drop here, and I'm going to do, or I need to switch to Dark Lance, back to Dark Lance, and then do exactly 6 charges here, and that's the minimum to take him out, at least the first phase. Perfect. And then I know his attack gauge is about to show up on the eye, so I'm just shooting Dark Blasts into it, and then you can see it just goes away immediately, instead of just waiting for it to show up. Alright, phase 2. So Wendy's going to move to the top of the area. So we just got to make our way over there, and hopefully no shenanigans happen. This beam here has a really weird chance of hitting you. Like, it's happened to me twice ever. And if it hits you, generally you just fall all the way to the bottom and have to start all the way back over from where you started walking after phase 1 of the boss. So it's really bad when that happens, but luckily we got away scot-free today.
Yeah,
alright, so just like,
possible.
Yeah, phase 2 here, just like phase 1, I'm gonna charge 6 shots. I'm gonna do 7 here just to be completely safe, but 6 is usually enough. Alright, that's enough. So I'm gonna do a big jump here. Very nice, to get us all the way back to the bottom. So it's gonna show up here. And maybe like 3 seconds I'll pop another magic drop. And then I'm going to charge all my lances here that I can. Although this might not work. Let's see. Yeah, so it just did nothing. That's great.
Yeah, unfortunately, the boss blocked the shots.
Right. Yeah, the target doesn't become active until a certain time after he starts rising up like that, and I just started the charge a little bit too early. But I didn't really lose too much time there. Maybe 7 seconds against optimal at the most. And that is our last key. So now we are able to go into the castle where NieR's daughter ought to be located. And let's end this thing.
Yeah, so now that we have the last key, we can head back to the library for one final time, talk to Popola and Devla.
No way. No way. This has never happened.
Oh. What?
And I do mean literally never happened.
I didn't even know a shade could spawn that close.
The single shade was just like, hey, what's up?
I didn't think they could spawn that close.
I've literally never seen that spawn that close, ever. At least never close enough to where you're like, am I gonna have to hit this thing? And that's what happened as soon as I saw it, and sure enough.
I'm still a little bit curious what the people of the area think. You know, you've shown up twice and had to fight giant
they
shades
despise
both
you.
times.
Oh yeah, they're not a fan of you.
They were never a fan of you to begin with.
The first time you impaled one, like right on the center of town.
Relatively
Yeah.
simple a task, this retrieval process.
Yeah, the
And-
people of the area do not like you at all.
And the more you start playing the game and seeing the different
It's almost as if
the different
someone
details that are exposed, the more you play, the more you just go, oh wow.
But
Yeah. As I said, it's a matter of perspective.
I don't care if it's
Yep.
a trap. Yona's waiting.
So Devil and Popola here are the ones that have been sending us on our quests. So we go tell them we got all the keys, and they're just like, "Hey, good luck." A
Yeah.
little sus, if you ask me. I don't know.
Yeah, they're kind of like, are you sure you want to do this? They're trying to like talk you down the entirety of the game, but like you're pretty sure this is what you want to do.
All right, last one. Very good. And the swag.
Nice.
Good enough.
So the question that comes to mind for me is that when you go one way, you can jump across the river, but coming back, you have to go along the wall.
Yep. And that's because when you approach the moat from the other side, there's actually an invisible wall there.
It's a plan.
Oh, and if you go from your house side, you just go right in the water?
If you go far enough like I do when I do it, you just completely bypass the wall. But if your spear jump isn't good enough, like if you don't get enough height on it, you'll fall short, and so it'll look like you're about to land, but then you just hit that invisible wall and you just fall straight in the water.
Ooh, okay.
But luckily, the nature of that skip is if we weren't to do that spear jump, the next best thing would be to jump in the water, more or less. At least probably. So it's not like the end of the world or something if you were to mess it up. And we're on this part. This is the part that Ame was mentioning earlier. This enemy can just shoot all of those projectiles at you, and I hope none of them hit me like that. Then sometimes an enemy can wait here.
Yeah, if you get too much, it'll just knock them right off.
So if I didn't wait on that ladder there, I would have gotten knocked all the way back to the bottom. And it looks like this guy's already... Nope, he's going to hit me. Okay.
Yeah, that guy at the top there really didn't want
Okay.
He
Okay.
he gatekeeps
Okay.
you pretty hard.
Okay. I swear I try not to throw the never have I evers in runs like this, but I'm not even kidding.
I've never seen him so aggressive at the top.
It's more of like what I'm talking about. This game has been showing you the extremes of good and bad luck.
That's right.
Very, very
It
much
wanted
so.
to make an entertaining showcase, I guess.
Alright, so last trip in the Lost Shrine here, and we have to do both the skips that we did here before and the skip once we get to the roof. So, here we go. Unfortunately, the enemies that spawn to do this are over here, instead of where they spawned before, like more like here. And this is why I had mentioned this to Railcoon before the run started, but I generally don't go for this. Okay, you know what? I'm just not going to do it at all. They're not even coming. And I guess that's my
No.
point. Like,
Yeah.
when you know that there's no boxes to be pushed around here and stuff like that, like, I can't say I condone going for that the second time. Alright, so I just need to get this. Okay. I mashed really good there too, so I don't know how I messed that up.
We'll chalk that one up to menu lag.
Okay. Menu lag it is. So there is another spear dash to side roll there. Yeah, imagine being on world record pace and just missing that and the run's over.
Oh my god.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Yep. I don't feel bad about missing that once at all. It loses about a minute every time you miss it, and saves a minute if you get it first try. So like, it's not bad in terms of the risk reward ratio. I'll do another dash to side roll there.
Yeah, so we're approaching basically the last leg at this point. We have a sort of semi-boss rush towards the end of the game, and it's literally just fight after fight after fight. So it just gets really jam-packed with stuff.
And that is my last skip of the run. So yeah, the first dungeon we go into in the run, the first dungeon we go into in the second half of the run, turns out to be the entrance to the castle of the antagonist the whole time. There it is.
We just didn't know it was there until now.
Right.
That door that just opened totally looks like you probably could have beaten it open as well. Like,
you'd like to
Yeah.
help, right?
Yeah.
did we really need that key, or could you just smash it?
Not in this, and not in RTA. You can't smash it. Tass, get back to me. All right, so there's these birds here, and they're giving us a test to see if we can answer these questions correctly to get to the castle. And luckily, they're all in the same spot.
If you paid attention at all to what the game was talking about up until this point, you'll have the answers. You may or may not
Correct.
just realize it. There's been a lot of people that don't realize that, and they spend, I'm not joking, half an hour to an hour trying to figure out that room.
So remember those two matriarchs helping us on our journey? What happened?
Yeah, they're not very good people. Or are they?
Madness. Why do you block our paths?
So they've been serving the bad person the entire time?
Not exactly.
Again, perspective, right?
Yeah, very much perspective.
All right, so phase 1 here is an auto-scroller, but phase 2 is not, so I'm actually on the clock here.
Copied my powers.
Shit on a shot. They can use the sealed bracelets. Of course we can.
Yeah, so leading up into this fight with Skate, they present you with a couple of options. They're all not good or bad options, but one of them resets your progress a little bit. So you don't want to choose that one.
Yeah, if you ever... Like, it's funny, like we were talking about a lot, how your options that you pick in menus don't matter, but like the last two that you saw matter.
Yes, they do seem to be putting
For that exact reason.
Yeah, we don't want to make our way all the way back here because we decided, yeah, no, forget about it. I'll let you guys, I'll leave this whole shenanigan behind.
All right, we made it just in time for the ball.
I love balls.
Certainly the ground affair.
That reminds me of the classic JRPG trope where, like, the bad guy asks you to join them, and in some games you can just say yes and you get a game over.
Yeah.
This game basically pseudo does that, with that option with the Devil of Poplar thing.
So all of this right now is an auto-scroller. You'll notice that, well, these ghosts will start slowly dancing. This one should go next, I think. Yeah, so you notice they go slow and then they just stop. And that's how you know the enemy's about to spawn. They spawn in the same place every single time. But since it's an auto-scroller, it's not so urgent to kill them quickly or anything like that. And especially at this point, just like 1 or 2 Dark Fists to do spear dashes is more than enough to take them out.
Yeah, one to take out their armor, and
Right.
the second one to finish them off.
Just as long as you're not getting behind so that you're slow on killing the last pair, I guess.
Right, yeah. And even after the last pair, you still have, I mean, a minute? Like a minute
God.
and change. Yeah, it's plenty of time.
Yeah, there's almost a minute worth of time when the last pair of enemies show up.
And I guess, yeah, I usually get pretty funny with the movement here just because, again, there's no, you're not on the clock here. But if you haven't really seen throughout this entire run I mean, it is an action RPG, but based on how, like, NieR looks and stuff, I find this game incredibly acrobatic in terms of, like, the movements you can do and stuff like that. And when you're able to, like, use that masterfully, I really think that is what makes this speed game so good. Is being able to utilize, all these random movements I'm doing right now, but in like a proper place and have it save time. Definitely my favorite part of the run is nailing all like the movement execution and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's not even crazy stuff either, unlike its sequel.
So yeah,
In the next door.
I could fight these enemies if I wanted to, but when you kill all 3 of the flying ones, they just respawn again, so you don't really have to kill the flying ones. Sometimes I go for it for fun. I try to leave one maybe. Ah, yeah, see, we got one. On a jump spear dash of all things.
Door. Come on. Oh, come on.
Kinda. Hurry.
It's not open yet? Do I look like a goddamn locksmith to you?
I think she could pass as one personally.
Oh, you idiot, what are you doing?
Lock doesn't want to open? Fine. I'll just break it down.
Alright, so now we have this. You have to defeat 5 of these. So I just use 2 lances, and that usually takes care of them. Now we have 1 of 3 boss fights with the same boss called Goose. Just in different forms each time. And we are on the clock here.
Is that just the boar that you fought at the start?
No.
No.
But it's an accumulation of shades that have formed a boar.
Well, I mean, is it the form that it's in? It looks like the boar that you fought at the start.
Yes, I guess.
Alright, I'm going
It's
to
a
go for a
complicated
trick here. Alright, good. So now what I can do is I can come here and attack Goose a little bit, and then hopefully... Okay, this might not work. I'm going to go for it, though. Okay, yeah. A lot of times when you get that spear dash into him, he'll stay stunned for quite a long time. And you can do a charge shot there and just have the fight be over instantly. But it really relies on you getting that spear charge into his head, like right there, when the fight starts. So it's just a matter if you get a good one or not. At this point, you can see he's like oozing green mist. It's poison. So you can see my health slowly trickling down.
Stay focused.
But as it turns out, it's just a distraction.
Don't fall victim to such distraction.
So hopefully my comrades here will be on our way here in a second.
Move it!
They're coming, they're coming. So when I leave this room here, I'm gonna have a really weird camera angle. You should obviously be able to
This
see
way.
it.
Move!
Ah. So generally once you get to okay, that's never happened before, great.
Up here!
So when you get into that room, usually you have a 180 camera angle. I've never had it do that where it doesn't do a 180 camera angle. But yeah, there you go. So now we're just running away from Goose. It's really hard to mess this up. Alright. So once we get to the end of the room over here, we'll have one more Goose fight.
Damn it, I can't get it open!
Where are Kaine and Emil?
Ooh.
Interesting.
The dialogue still went off of I can't get it open.
Alright, I'm gonna go for the strat again.
Interesting.
Okay, they're here now. They're here now.
Okay, there they are.
And that's more or less the strat I was trying to pull off on the last Goose fight.
The entrance is locked.
But yeah, you can get a glitch here when you go up that spiral staircase, that cutscene of Goose chasing you doesn't happen, and you just have to go back and trigger it. But I've never seen Emil and Kaine not spawn, so I was a little worried there that some shenanigans were happening, but it's all good. And now our old friends from Facade have shown up to save the day, which is good for us. So yeah, until then we just let them take care of business. And sometimes this the Goose here will ignore you, which is nice because then you can just sit there, take a nice tea break.
You are correct.
Leave me alone! And as you can see, our comrades are dying to help the cause. So eventually this door over here will open. and we'll be able to leave. Alright, like now. Alright. This is another 180 camera angle. Alright. There'll be 3 of these rooms you have to go through. Okay, on to the next boss fight. The second to last one at that. And hey, look who it is. So this is when the curtain gets pulled on NieR and his comrades. I'll let you play the game to figure out what's going on here. So, unlike almost every fight in the run where we're trying to do max DPS, this fight's one of the only examples that I can think of where that's not the strat. And the reason for this is, if you do anything other than just regular attacking here, say like a spear special or anything like that, Devila here will just teleport somewhere else. So it turns out the fastest way to beat her is to just knock her in a corner. And we'll be doing the same thing here with Popola, just it's a little bit quicker.
Probably helps that the spear is also so powerful. It's chunking her pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. This part of the run is like super feel and like heart grabbing.
Yeah.
Because it just dumps so much on you as a character, and you're like, oh boy, what have I done?
Alright, so all that's left are 2 fights and the final boss, which is split up into 4 phases. So I'm going to be treating this fight similar to the one I did in the Airy. I'll use a magic drop here. So yeah, just like the other one, you want to use like your excess drops to, you know, try to shred through these guys as quick as possible. And if you're good enough, you can have them last for both rooms, because there's going to be a fight just like this in the next room. See, there you go. So there's the Dark Hand hitbox messing up. Or rather, me messing up my position for the Dark Hand hitbox. So we're just shredding. Thank you, Kaine. That was so nice of you. Okay, so this is the Shadow Lord. 1 of 4 phases. To start, I'm going to pop a strength and magic drop and just start shredding him.
Being slightly more accurate, this is Grimoire Noir first.
Yes. And unfortunately, it looks like I didn't get the 1 cycle. That's alright. So, phase 2 goes right into, I guess, the first of 3 Shadow Lord portions. That's our main antagonist. You can do the math to figure out who he looks like.
Is he the main antagonist, or is he the protagonist?
Again,
He's the
perspective,
main,
such a finicky thing, eh?
he's the main antagonist of NieR's story.
Yes. Or...
They are to each other, technically.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, phase 3, this is the hardest phase for it to go right. So as soon as he makes an action, I'm going to spear dash left, pop a magic cap or magic drop, and do 5 or 6 spear dash or dark lance charges. And I need all these to hit.
If someone puts them in danger,
Yeah, so right now he's slowing down time
Very good.
ever so slightly, just to line up the shots.
All right.
Nice.
Final phase. We've lost all of our magic, so we just got to come over here and whack him 3 times.
That sounds easy, right?
Easier said than done.
Yeah, yeah, it can be quite tricky.
I have a reason to live.
Yeah, here we go. The suffering begins. Wow, I've never tried that before. I'm doing that from now on. Alright.
Nice.
And that's our last boss fight.
Yeah, so we still have one important thing to do.
Yeah, I was
Right.
going to say, let me know when time is.
Yep, so time will be in like 10 seconds, maybe less. Normally you end the run by typing in the name of your character, so hopefully I was hoping to type in Papa here since we got to name our hero today. But when you do speedruns of this, you just pick the character that the cursor is on by default, which is 1. 3, 2, 1, Time.
Well done.
GG.
And guess what? Sub 10. 310.
Sub 310.
Yep. Ami, you were the closest to our little guess.
Yeah, we had a
24
little.
seconds off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yuna.
So yeah, what you all are seeing right now is ending A of the game. And if you play it a second time, you start a little over halfway through the run.
And yours.
And when you beat the game that time on New Game Plus, it's ending B. And then you can play it a couple more times to get ending C and D, depending on some situations. But
The important thing to note, though, when you do replay the game is you get the alternative perspectives. And that's where you get a lot more of the lore behind the game.
I think so.
that's right.
But other than that, there is a new Game Plus category that Skate here has also done runs on, which starts from that point. And there's only one runner who's actually been crazy enough to run all endings. So by all the endings, we don't count C as one of the endings because of the way the game's structured. C or D is an option,
Okay.
and you only get that choice
Where you
from
gonna
the
go,
same
Kai?
requirement. So
Oh,
we just go with the
Stay
best
with
one.
us.
I would like to put it out there. If anyone is interested in the game, I would highly recommend playing it. The story is amazing.
I
What do you mean?
mean, I can't emphasize that enough. Like, just to give you all perspective here, in case you think you're missing out, I found out about NieR Automata just by a random happen chance, and I played the game, and I loved the game, and then I speedran the game for a little bit, and I thought it was really fun, and then turns out there's a game before NieR Automata, and you can definitely tell some similarities between the two games and things that, you know, are mentioned in each game. But please, please, please do not feel like you're missing out because you played Automata first. This game is absolutely a treasure, and I could recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, the good thing about a lot of these games in the series is that they do a good job of like introducing the previous title without spoiling the game or making you feel like you missed something from it.
Yeah.
So it's not a big deal if you played Automata first, which most people would have. But for like people like Omnigamer, myself, and maybe some other people out there who've been playing this game for a while, we definitely enjoyed the reminiscence of playing Automata afterwards and seeing that, oh, like they're making references again, because that's a common thing in these games.
So if someone wanted to get into running this game, where would they go?
First place they would go to would be our amazing Discord community, which recently had a merger with the Drakengard series, which is another part of the series in general. This game is a spin-off of the Drakengard games. And you can visit that at discord.nearspeedruns.com.
There's also another link, which is my favorite link, which is www.sponsoredbydrakengard.com.
Yes, everything is always sponsored by Drakengard, just to let you know.
Yeah, it'll direct you to the exact same place.
Yep. That's actually a reference to a WWE commercial back in the day where it was sponsored by Drakengard. Just fun little tidbit. You can actually search that video up on YouTube and watch that. It's quite funny. But yeah, we have different channels for both Automata, NieR, and the Drakengard games with resources. So if you want to learn the game, yeah, there's resources there. Skate's got his own notes there for the speedrun. I had a work in progress guide from years ago that I'm looking to update in that myself and Dale Duck, another runner of this game, had been working on. It explains a bit more in detail and is a bit more new player friendly. And then there's plenty of videos provided by people you've mentioned throughout the run, like Evil Ash, Akion, and there's a few other people there too. I can briefly take a look over there. But there's resources on there that show little video examples of movement and different sort of techniques and stuff. So Evil Ash definitely, and Akion, and Gorstar is another person who's shared information from us. And it's really interesting too. And Ami recently joined us as a runner as well, and they've been doing emulation runs, which is a bit more friendly for them to get into. So
I did actually get a hardware copy very recently, so I've been doing that as well.
Yeah, look forward to those new people.
Yeah, and I guess the thing I always tell people when they ask me, like, how should I get into running NieR? Like, there's just so many things about this run that you're really not going to understand until you start doing it. Like, you saw me the entire run today just side rolling everywhere, and it's just become second nature. But to be able to side roll that well everywhere, it's just, it takes so much time of just playing the game. And people will ask for like notes and stuff like that, but I find that you get more value of just watching a really good run, such as, you know, me or Bernie or even OmniGamer's run from 6 years ago still holds up to an extent.
Yeah, OmniGamer's run is a really good starting point for new players. Just want to point that out before
Absolutely.
we get into the advanced stuff.
Yeah, and I find that if you maybe played the game, studied the world record, and maybe had a set of notes up while watching and doing it all, would be the best way to get into it. But if you're looking for a speedrun that is mostly execution based, but at the top level has a lot of luck, this is the run for you. I truly think that this speedrun is something special. I tend to gravitate myself towards speedruns that aren't really done that much. And especially compared to its sequel, this run is not done very much. And I'd love to see a change in that. So, at least for the immediate future, if anyone has any questions or anything that they want to ask me about, you can at the minimum at least ask me. But as they said, definitely come in the Discord and talk to some people about this great series.
Yeah, there's plenty of people that are in a Discord that are aware of this game and have been contributing, even if they're not runners.
That's right. And yeah, while I'm here, of course, I have to thank Railcoon and GDQ for reaching out to our community to offer this. And I personally had a blast. I think my commentators today did a really good job. So I have them to thank as well. And I really appreciate you all showing up for the speedrun. It really does mean a lot to me. And I know it means a lot to the community. So thank you so much. I really hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was my pleasure to have you on today because it fits with the theme of the spotlight of showing off things that aren't in popular knowledge as much. So I'm glad we could have you on. Thanks again for doing the run, and thanks to Ame and Mesh for helping to commentate. But I believe we're
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so it was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I believe we're gonna be wrapping up here pretty shortly, unless we have any final shoutouts.
Unless you just want to let the credits roll, they got like another minute or so, and we get to our in-game time. But otherwise, you could end it right now if you'd like.
Yeah, we can do the closing announcements while we wait for the in-game time.
Sure,
probably.
that'd be great.
So just make sure that you tune in tomorrow. We've got random number generation starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern to show about randomizers and randomizer communities. They feature randomizer races and related content. Sometimes devs will be on talking about how they're made and talking about updates to big randomizers. So make sure you tune in for that. It'll be a lot of fun. If you're not aware already, SGDQ was delayed. There's a bunch of information about that at gamesdonequick.com/notice. And of course, thanks everybody for tuning in and watching today. Hotfix is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions and bits. We'd appreciate it if you consider subscribing, especially with those Twitch Prime subs, if you got any of them ready. Once we see the end of the credits here and get the time, we're going to take a quick break, play a few ads, and then we're going to raid someone. I'm not going to tell you who. But we found somebody in the NieR community of games that we can send a raid off to, and you all can cheer them on as they do speedruns. So it'll be a nice little wrap-up for today's show. So if you're willing to stick around, we can do that. And I think raid message would have to be what? Papa NieR?
I absolutely approve Papa NieR as the raid message.
Papa NieR says go fast. There we go.
Yeah.
So traditionally in the past, runs were done via IGT, so it's just kind of formality to make your little final save here. But we do runs over RTA now, so especially since you're watching the whole credits, you might as well see the time. Yeah. And obviously that time is not accurate because I loaded a save.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit faster than that.
Yeah, very much.
But yeah, that's it from me. Thank you all so much, really.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks again to everybody who came on, and of course, other people in the community who made this possible. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to wrap things up and send you along on the raid.